Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
If I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Tuesday, December 4th, 2018. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, from Mother Jones, Ari Berman, on the thoroughly anti-democratic Republican power theft. Meanwhile, it's Mueller Advent calendar time. Sadly, this one may not last until Christmas. Or actually, happily. Yeah.
Happily, particularly for the...
I mean, the Advent thing was a metaphor.
The non-Gentiles.
Election fraud in North Carolina looking like it will lead to arrests, as well as a do-over. And new report, corporate tax breaks are costing public schools billions of dollars. Republicans stop a plan to lower Medicare drug prices, and the CIA torture head to brief Senate on the Khashoggi killing. Meanwhile, Milo Yiannopoulos, at least $2 million in debt, contemplating selling vowels from his name.
I really like that.
No, thank you. It's day 4 of the hagiographies as Bush Sr. awaits burial. All this and more on today's program, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I wasn't sure about that Yiannopoulos joke.
No, that landed.
Thank you. We will be talking to Ari Berman soon. The stories that are coming out of Wisconsin are stunning, and it's ongoing right now. I think the votes are happening almost, or very close to happening as we speak. There's a lot of activism that's going on there at the State House. Again, I think we mentioned this yesterday, but call your state representatives. If you're in Michigan, if you're in Ohio, if you're in Wisconsin in particular, those three states, North Carolina, of course, folks have had to deal with this for some time. But really important story. We'll be talking to Ari Berman about it soon. Also, this story about a week ago, I flagged for you that in the 9th District of North Carolina, for some reason they hadn't certified the congressional race where the Republican had ostensibly won by 905 votes, something like that. And this thing's been unraveling ever since. And it appears, we're going to play a clip in a bit, but it appears like there's been rampant fraud perpetrated against voters, in addition to installing a Republican. We will get to that in a moment. In the meantime, though, this is funny. Look, it's the holiday season. And so videos like this are, for whatever reason, particularly enjoyable for all of us here at the Majority Report. We like to see people fight. We like to see people we disagree with be on the wrong end of an argument. And there's nothing more heartwarming than to see it all play out on national TV with Christmas trees in the backdrop. So
And a very questionable dress choice from one of the peripheral players.
That's right. Yes. No. This is the program called The View. And I think they are obligated to have 2 politician daughters on at any given time. So Abby Huntsman and what's her name, McCain? Megan McCain. Megan McCain are on. Abby Huntsman, you'll recall, worked at MSNBC, then went over to Fox and Friends, and now apparently has landed on The View. And Megan McCain has worked just about everywhere and is on The View. And apparently Megan McCain and Joy Behar are having a little bit of problems. Now, I've known Joy for many years. I used to be on her program on CNN. And then I was on her program at Current. She's smart. She also does not take much grief from anyone. And so this is particularly enjoyable. They were talking, in this instance, about George Bush Sr. Now, I think we've made our opinion about George Bush Sr. Pretty well known on this program. I think the guy was, I don't know enough about the history of the way that presidents are perceived to say that he was the most overrated of presidents relative to what he did, but I don't know if that's true or not. But honestly, the damage this guy did far outweighed anything beyond the fact that he appeared in public to be somewhat appropriate. So there's that. But here is this debate, and apparently it's sacrosanct. You don't talk about anything but just in a vacuum our president, because he's like our daddy in a way.
I want to say one thing about him that was not picked up really, because as a candidate, he said, those who think we're powerless to do anything about the greenhouse effect are forgetting about the White House effect. And then he signed into law the Clean Air Act Amendment of 1990, one of the most sweeping environmental statutes ever. This president that we have now is trying to unravel everything that he did and Obama did. And if I ever become a one-issue voter, it will be about pollution and the greenhouse effect and
Can
the
we
fact
focus
that
on the president, please? I don't want to talk about Trump.
Well, I do
we're
for
in
a
the
second,
moment
so
of, we're honoring a great president
Excuse me a second,
passed.
please. I want to talk about
But
the
we're
difference.
honoring, but I'm not interested in your one issue
I don't
voter when
care
our
what you're
president just
interested in.
passed.
I'm talking.
Well, I don't care what you're interested in
We'll
either.
be right back.
Boy. Okay?
Later, Christmas controversy. A radio station just banned a holiday.
It's the most bizarre thing.
The audience.
First of all, yeah, they're still arguing at each other. I mean, they're
What's great is
they're not just still
don't
arguing.
like each other.
They're big. The argument gets bigger
Clearly.
as they end. Everybody is just laughing and smiling at it. It has that sort of like surreal quality of like Running Man or whatever, some futuristic game show. And
Brazil.
yeah, here they go.
Right,
Watch,
Brazil
just watch. And she goes, F you. And the other hosts are just sort of like completely.
And Megan McCain's like, my dad would like object to what you're saying and such.
Well, the problem that Megan McCain has is that she doesn't want politics to in any way mar our honoring of the president. And you know what? Like this attitude, and I don't care who the president is or was, this attitude that somehow like this isn't just this is like a religious figure. This is like the emperor, right? We can't speak. We can't talk about mere mortal things.
You want to talk about
We can't-
child
we
molestation?
can't talk
I
about-
want to talk about the Pope.
We
okay?
can't talk about politics in the context of talking about the president. And Behar was being, at least to some extent, complimentary of
Behar was paying the guy a compliment for actually, if we're being objective, something he should get a positive notch for. It won't outrun his running the CIA or running the Willie Horton ads, but good for him. He signed that legislation. But what's amazing, I mean, not only is she wrong, but I mean, what an unprofessional brat.
I wonder.
Wow.
Well,
With
and
a lot
actually,
of sincere tension.
it's
there, which I
interesting
like.
that you say unprofessional brat, because apparently, this is according to the Daily Mail, Joy
Which is a
Behar
fascist publication.
continued to fume as the show cut to commercial. Now, look, we could see what was going on there. They both were still fuming, but they want to put this. And she said she would leave the show if this, quote, this is according to the Daily Mail, this shit doesn't stop. She said, I can't take this much more, Behar reportedly said. She called McCain, quote, an entitled bitch.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. Now, look. I don't appreciate the use of the word bitch. I find that to be a little bit gendered. I don't think
Cock.
Now, it's one thing to say it, off camera, as opposed to Fox, which apparently just the other day literally had it said on their air about Joy Behar.
Wouldn't Joy have carte blanche to say it, though?
Right. In that respect. And I don't think that she means it in a gendered way. I think her point is that McCain thinks that because her dad was a senator, she can get a job on TV, and she's right. That's how she got that job. I've worked with her on a TV show, and I can tell you that I have run into people who are more talented than her. Actually, I ran into people who were more talented than her on that day, in that moment. People who were not even on camera, who were more talented in terms of them being on camera. So the idea that, Meghan McCain can show up on this show and tell Joy Behar, who's been on the show, I think, for a couple of decades, off and on, you can't in any way divert your attention to the sort of the present day politics when you're talking about a dead president. I think it's pretty impressive.
I was going to talk about how him and my dad went golfing together, and you're talking about like the greenhouse and whatnot. Like, you're stupid. You're an old Jew. I hate you. Oh my God.
She's not Jewish. I
didn't know that.
Joy Behar is Italian.
I need briefers. Like, this is ridiculous.
But what is interesting is I wonder if it's because McCain is embarrassed by her Republican Party stance on global warming. I wonder if that's what it comes down to. She
has a lot of proxy tension anytime issues like that are brought
right.
up. I think you're right.
I think that's part of it. But I'm perfectly willing to host a debate between the two of them. We can do it here. And all I can say to Joy Behar, I believe back in the day we would say, you go, girl.
Ask the moms.
That's right. All right. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to, wait a second. I get some copy to do. Oh, this is great. The New Yorker magazine, as you know, it's an iconic magazine that represents the best writing in America today. Beyond publishing the best writers in the world, the New Yorker holds people in power accountable through rigorous reporting and compelling storytelling. Plus, they write beautiful pieces on subjects that readers may not have previously put much thought into, like the world's diminishing supply of sand or heirloom beans. They incorporate features like poetry, fiction, cultural criticism, and satire into every issue. You can get the best writing anywhere, everywhere, with home delivery of the print edition each week. Or you can read on the go with the New Yorker Today app or via Google News. The number of New Yorker stories that I have referenced on this program, I don't think it's calculable. Some of the biggest stories of the year, all of the reporting that Ronan Farrow did, that Jane Mayer did, those big, big stories that came out this year, all in the New Yorker, and more. They have great great reported pieces. This week, why we sleep and why we often can't. These are all lined up on my app that I read these things. Countering Trump at the border. I mean, there's just so many people I read out of the New Yorker. Just looking at the Cyndi Lauper's mission to help homeless teens. Interesting. All this and more, you cannot go wrong when you're reading the New Yorker, either whether it comes as a a satire piece or fiction, or frankly, some of the best and most reliable reporting in the country. Don't wait. Go to NewYorker.com/majority. Listeners of the Majority Report save 50% when they enter the code majority. So get this. With this special offer, you're going to receive 12 issues for $6. Plus, you get the exclusive New Yorker tote bag. Talk about a gift subscription. Hello. I mean, it doesn't say that on the copy, but you can choose between the print, digital, or a combo subscription. Subscribe to the New Yorker. Read something that means something. That's 12 issues for $6 and a free tote bag when you go to NewYorker.com/majority. Also, whether it's cranberry sauce that drops or your uncle's smelly socks, I don't know why you would be dealing with your uncle's smelly socks. Just your own smelly socks. Nothing cleans holiday messes like Mrs. Meyer's Holiday Scents. It's available in Iowa pine, peppermint, and orange clove. You can shop your favorite scents at grove.co. Then once you place your first order of $20 or more, new customers will get the holiday set, which includes free Mrs. Meyer's holiday hand soap. You know what I'm talking about, the Miss Myers, right?
I use it.
I think we have some over there,
We
actually.
have it here, and I have it in my apartment.
You get a free Mrs. Meyer's holiday dish soap, free Mrs. Meyer's holiday multi-surface spray, a Grove collaborative red cleaning caddy, and a Grove collaborative walnut scrubber sponge. If you spend $39, you also receive a free Grove stoneware tray to beautifully display your new holiday soaps. I've started to use this now regularly. The Grove, it's like, I don't know how to explain this. It is, they probably don't want me to cite that site, but it's like a site where you go and you shop for products. But all of the products are natural products, like cleaning products, etc. And these tend to be very expensive in the stores. Much less expensive through Grove, and get sent right to your door. So I am contemplating, I don't want anybody carried away, with asking someone to come in and clean this place on a regular basis. That's very exciting. And this set, where you get the cleaning caddy, the multi-surface spray, the hand soap, all this, I'm going to order one. Shop Grove before this exclusive holiday offer runs out. The stuff will all be gone come December. For a limited time, my listeners will get Mrs. Meyer's holiday products, a 60-day VIP membership, and a surprise bonus gift free when you sign up and place an order of $20 or more. Check out Grove and our special offer at grove.co/TMR. TMR for the Majority Report. That's grove.co, that's not com, .co/TMR. Check it out. And lastly, folks, if you're looking for the perfect gift for someone but you're having trouble, you can show your appreciation for anyone on your list by treating them to a gift from Mrs. Fields. Mrs. Fields had made a delicious treats for over 40 years. Here, bring the box over here. It's over there. It's sitting on that thing. From their signature chocolate chips to handcrafted frosted favorites and melt-into-your-mouth brownies. Mrs. Fields' gourmet gift tins and baskets make the perfect present to surprise and delight anyone on your list this season. At Mrs. Fields, their cookies and sweets are baked daily and always arrive fresh and flavorful. Ordering is easy. They can ship your gift to anywhere in the U.S. Plus, you can add a personal touch with a custom message, company logo, or a family photo. That would have been nice on this. Like a Majority Report logo on this.
That would be cool.
This is a good opportunity for someone to use this to Photoshop that on there for us.
I like peace, love, cookies. Could be like zero sum.
Yeah, exactly.
Social Security, TMR.
Mrs. Fields even offers 100% customer satisfaction guarantee. This year, send a fresh baked gift, and no one can resist. Let me give you a sense of what my feeling was about the cookies and brownies. The brownies were nuts. I don't think there was nuts in them. There may have been, but I don't remember. But they were nuts in terms of good. This is what I thought about the Mrs. Fields. Completely gone now. Like, it was more like, guys, take some of these because I'm just going to have, all right, well, guys, you got to take more of these because I'm going to, okay, and then I ate it all. I didn't eat it all, but.
A great deal.
Everybody else got some, right? Brendan, you got some?
I got some.
Matt did. Michael was the only one who did not. Sorry about that, buddy.
I wish.
Hey, right now, get 20% off your order when you go to mrsfields.com, enter promo code majority. That's 20% off any gift at mrsfields.com, promo code majority, mrsfields.com, promo code majority. Check it out. You're going to love it. Delicious. And a sweet gift. Put a picture of the kids on the box and send it to the folks. And then they get to keep the tin. I'm going to bring that tin to Saul. All right, folks, going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Ari Berman about what's going on in Wisconsin. It's also going on in Michigan and in in Ohio. It has happened in North Carolina. One note, we had a technical difficulty when we recorded this. The video is not there, so we're just going to basically go to a wide shot with Ari on the screen, right? And we'll play the audio, and we'll be back in just a few, right back after this.
Driving all night, you could be a shadow.
So, Ari, this is what we're seeing right now in Wisconsin. In fact, I think we're pre-taping this just a little bit before noon, but I think around noon or so, they're going to start voting in on the floor. It's passed the committee. Let's start with what's happening in Wisconsin, and then we will talk about the other states. But this has that feel of like somebody in ALEC came up with this idea 10 years ago, and they're finally having the opportunity to use it.
Well, it's just really incredible. I mean, what's happening in Wisconsin is you do everything you can to try to rig an election through massive gerrymandering, through voter suppression, through unlimited dark money. And then when all of that doesn't work, when Democrats still manage to win, and Democrats won every statewide election in Wisconsin in 2018, including the governor's office, then what you do is you go back into session in the lame duck when nobody's supposed to be paying attention, and you introduce all of these bills that strip the incoming Democratic governor of power, that strip the incoming Democratic attorney general of power, that make it harder to vote, that really it's a 141-page bill. So we're talking about a lot of different stuff they're doing right before Scott Walker leaves office, and Republicans will no longer have this crazy Republican majority that they've had for the last decade. So it really is, we overuse the word unprecedented, I think, a lot. But according to an actual analysis by the Wisconsin Legislative Study Branch, they have said this is the first time in state history that a special legislative session to strip power from the other party. So, I mean, it really is unprecedented in Wisconsin, even though they are borrowing some tactics that have been used in other states.
So, okay, I mean, I think people are, and I want to go through the specifics of it, but and the idea that it's a 140 some odd page bill suggests to me that this is something they've been working on for an extended period of time, getting ready for this potentiality, I guess. But how is it?
Well,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
They started discussing it with Scott Walker's staff even before the election. So evidently Walker wasn't too confident about his reelection prospects. But Republicans did this in North Carolina. And what I always say is that North Carolina is really the state where every terrible Republican policy gets exported from. I'd say Wisconsin and North Carolina are the two Republican states more than any other that export the most terrible Republican policies. And so it kind of goes back on where the policy comes from, but in 2016 the same thing happened, which is that North Carolina had a Republican supermajority in the legislature. Suddenly, they elected a Democratic governor in 2016, and they held this special legislative session where they stripped the Democratic governor of all of these powers, including his ability to appoint a majority in the state board of elections, which is huge in a state with constant election battles. We're seeing a huge voter fraud, election fraud scandal playing out right now in North Carolina, where Republicans basically tried to steal a congressional election. And so that was the model. And I think we probably should have been more prepared for it, that once Democrats had big victories in 2018, we should have been prepared for Republicans to come into the lame duck session and do in Wisconsin and other states what they did in North Carolina in 2016.
All right. We're getting ahead of ourselves because I was going to ask you about that preparation here. But what is it that makes you why is it that North Carolina and Wisconsin are the exporters of these things? What they almost seem to be like the petri dishes. Is it a function of them being both sort of like purplish states? In a red state, you don't need to do this type of thing because you just have electoral control. In a blue state, you can't. I mean, what is it?
Exactly, that they are emblematic of being purple states in very important regions. So North Carolina is one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive southern state right now when it comes to elections. Wisconsin is the quintessential swing state in the Midwest when it comes to elections. And I think in Wisconsin, a decade ago, the Koch brothers and others made a very conscious choice that if they could turn one of the most progressive states historically in the country into a laboratory for the conservative movement, that would have an impact not just in Wisconsin but in other states as well, which is why they poured so much money into attacking unions and doing gerrymandering and passing voter suppression laws and all the things they've done, and they've tried to export that around the country. In North Carolina, you really have a state where the demographics are changing. It's emblematic of what's happening in other states in the country, states in the South like Georgia. I think they're incredibly worried that if they lose Wisconsin, if they lose North Carolina, they're going to lose their footholds in the Midwest. They're going to lose their footholds in the South. And so they are just doing anything they can to try to strip Democrats of power and to try to prevent the changing demographics of the country and the changing demographics of the state from having political power, because so many of the voting changes in Wisconsin and North Carolina have been aimed at trying to disenfranchise black voters, whether it's black voters in North Carolina or whether it's black voters in places like Milwaukee and Wisconsin.
Okay, so let's go through what they're doing specifically in Wisconsin. But before we do, how is this legal? Right? How is it that you can attack the structure of government this way? Or how is it that the structure of the state government is this vulnerable to an attack by an outgoing lame duck legislator? It just seems to me that this is almost like a parody, right? I lost the election. We're passing a law that I can't lose elections. It's sort of like that.
Yeah,
right?
It is straight out of a banana republic, and in fact, it might not be legal. In North Carolina, a lot of the things they've done in that lame duck session in 2016 have been challenged and overturned by the courts. Of course, these parties have put a tremendous amount of effort into changing the courts, just like Donald Trump and the Republicans have nationally, to try to get a friendlier audience when these laws are challenged in court. But absolutely, this kind of thing is going to be challenged. Just to give you one example, in Wisconsin, one of the things they're doing is they're cutting early voting. Some places in Wisconsin offer up to 6 weeks of early voting, and they had record turnout in 2018 with early voting. Now they're cutting early voting to 2 weeks. Wisconsin already cut early voting, and it was challenged in court, and the court said that was done to, in the court's words, suppress the reliably Democratic black voters in Milwaukee. So, it was pretty clear why Republicans did this the first time, and essentially they're doing the same thing that was already struck down in court. So I think a lot of this stuff is going to be challenged, but the bigger question is, why do we even have these lame duck legislative sessions? Why do people that have already lost the election get to convene under the old rules? And I think there's just another irony here, which is that Republicans have gerrymandered Wisconsin so effectively that in the legislature they got 46% of votes. Candidates for the Wisconsin legislature got 46% of votes and they got 63% of seats. So, I mean, you really have a minority party doing majority rule and stripping power from the candidate in Tony Evers, the Democratic winner for governor, who actually got the most votes. So you have the party that got the least amount of votes trying to strip power from the guy who just got the most votes, which is, I mean, any way you slice it, this is just unbelievably undemocratic.
And my understanding is they were going to attempt to separate the presidential primary election from the state Supreme Court elections. They could not pass that. And the idea would be that, apparently Republicans will come out for a sort of like a non-presidential election at a higher rate. Is that the idea? And that was
this was unbelievable. I mean, Wisconsin has a presidential primary in April, which presumably in 2020 will a lot of people will be paying attention. They also have a race for Supreme Court, and right now there's a 4-3 conservative majority in the Wisconsin Supreme Court, which has upheld pretty much every terrible thing Scott Walker has done. They are very worried. Republicans are very worried they're going to lose that majority. So what they tried to do is move the primary 1 month up in March for no other reason that they were then in a special election for the Supreme Court in April, which is just, I mean, it's so transparent. It would have cost the state $7 million. Every single county clerk in Wisconsin, regardless of their political affiliation, was opposed to this, because then you have to do 2 separate ballots just a month apart.
Right.
It'd be completely confusing for voters. I mean, and basically, Wisconsin Republicans admitted that they did this to just try to protect their Supreme Court justice. So, I mean, we're dealing with such a level of contempt for democracy, Sam. And one of the things that disturbs me is that I don't think the media is prepared to cover this. They are so ingrained to do both sides, to say, well, both sides are doing it. And there is no both sides to the story. There isn't a single example of a Democratic legislature going into a lame duck to strip the incoming Republican governor or attorney general or secretary of state of power. There's nowhere even close to that. But here you have a clear case. This is only Republicans doing it. Only Republicans are passing laws that make it harder to vote. Only Republicans are falsely accusing Democrats of stealing elections. And only Republicans are doing unprecedented lame duck sessions to try to strip Democrats of power. And so I think you have a clear asymmetry in terms of the strategy here, but I think so many in the media are so ingrained to do both sidesism or so afraid of saying one party's doing this, the other party isn't, that I don't think they're going to adequately cover what's going on.
Yeah, I saw a tweet today from, I can't remember the news outlet, but the headline was something to the effect of like, Wisconsin Republicans seek to enhance power. Like something just sort of so benign and, oh yeah, politics as usual. All right, let's talk about the other states. And then I want to talk about this idea of not just the asymmetry in what can be done, but what hasn't been done. I mean, because let's go to North Carolina, because we saw this in North Carolina 2 or 3 years ago. North Carolina, there was a real feel, particularly like 3 or 4 years ago, at the height of the Moral Mondays campaign by Reverend Barber, which continues, I think, throughout those, at least in North Carolina, maybe a couple other states. But it really had a sense of like, wow, this is like a rogue situation. We're never going to see this. This is embarrassing. There's something embarrassing about North Carolina. And now it seems to be a template. But let's just revisit North Carolina, but then talk about, because you cover this all the time as well as anybody I know. You're on top of not just the voting stuff, but this broadly, this type of thing. And I would imagine you would be aware if, this is sort of a joke, but David Axelrod was starting a group to make sure to protect democracy or something. I know he's done a podcast, but what? Tell us about North Carolina, and then let's talk about why we're not seeing any type of response by Democrats institutionally.
Well, I think so. What North Carolina did is, I mean, first off, they just passed all these laws to make it harder to vote, which was then struck down in court. Then when a Democrat actually won the governor's race in 2016, the first thing they in this lame duck session, strip that Democratic governor of power. And that model is now being exported to Wisconsin, Michigan, and other states. Then because their voter ID law was struck down in court, and the court said that this law, along with a bunch of other things like cutting early voting and eliminating same-day voter registration, they said it targeted black voters with, quote, almost surgical precision. So then they put a constitutional amendment on the ballot requiring photo ID to vote. But they didn't write anything else other than, should we require photo ID to vote? And it passed with 60% of the vote, which I don't think is that surprising because there was no details in terms of what people were supporting. And people were like, yeah, we should require photo ID to vote. But then the legislature actually had to write the bill. And what happened in the last election was that Republicans lost their legislative supermajority in 2018, meaning that they can no longer sustain vetoes from the Democratic governor. So instead of waiting until the next year, there's no rush to write this bill. Instead of waiting till the next year to write this bill, they are now writing the voter ID law in a lame duck session, so the Democratic governor will be unable to veto it. So, first they stripped the Democratic governor of power in 2016, then they go into lame duck session and pass a very controversial law that he'll be unable to veto in this session because they still have a super majority until January. The last thing I'll say is there has been all this rhetoric from Republicans about voter fraud in North Carolina and the need to pass this voter ID law to stop voter fraud. Well, the voter ID law, interestingly enough, only deals with one kind of fraud, in-person voter impersonation, which is incredibly rare. Me going up to the polls and saying I'm Sam Seder and trying to vote under your name, which almost never happens. They are exempting absentee ballots from counting towards the ID requirement.
Now we know why. Now we know why.
Now we know why. Because there was a huge scandal, the most blatant case of election fraud that I've ever seen in modern American politics, where Republicans in rural North Carolina
This
went
is congressional
around
district.
and basically
This is congressional district 9.
the 9th congressional district.
We mentioned, I think about a week ago, I said, for some reason, they're not certifying it. They haven't quite said yet, but there seems to be one area where there's just something really bizarre going on.
And we're still getting details on what's happening, but it's pretty clear that a few things happened. One is that they may have forged or fraudulently submitted a bunch of absentee ballots on behalf of the Republican candidate. It's also clear that Republican operatives went door to door, particularly to elderly African Americans, took their ballots and dumped them because there is an unusually high rate, an exceedingly high rate of absentee ballots for the Republican candidate only. And then there's a bunch of reports of people not getting their absentee ballots counted, but people going to their door and collecting them.
My understanding is I saw a report last night that they not only had hired people to go to the doors to pick them up, but instead of delivering them back to the county electoral commission, they brought them to the campaign manager of the Republican candidate. They brought him to his house, the ballots.
Yeah. I mean, and people should and probably will go to jail for this. I mean, this was a criminal conspiracy to try to... The point I just wanted to finish making was that if you were going to deal with election fraud, voter fraud in North Carolina, the first thing you would do is look at absentee ballots. That's the only place where there's some evidence of fraud. But the voter ID law exempts absentee ballots because that is where Republicans are more likely to vote, and clearly that is where Republicans are more likely to try to steal an election. So it's just an unbelievable charade to me that they are pushing ahead with a voter ID law that they claim is necessary to stop fraud while exempting the very type of fraud that their party is committing because that benefits them politically. I mean, if the media can't cover this and show that this is such a charade, I don't know what they can cover, because this is so obvious what is happening here in North Carolina. And I mean, just, all of the people in the last election, Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, Rick Scott, Paul Ryan, Lindsey Graham, who accused Democrats of stealing elections with absolutely no evidence, complete lies, are now haven't said a word about actual election fraud occurring in North Carolina.
All right, so we have this going on in North Carolina, and we have a similar dynamic in Wisconsin, similar dynamic going on in Michigan, right? And I mean, they're trying to do the exact same thing, it seems like.
Basically, what happened, Michigan is like Wisconsin. They elected a Democratic governor. They elected a Democratic Secretary of State. It basically was a clean sweep for Democrats. They also passed two really good ballot initiatives, one for nonpartisan redistricting and one that would give election day registration, automatic registration, no excuse absentee ballots to Michigan, which is huge because Michigan has some of the worst election laws in the country, and it was decided by only 10,000 votes in 2016. And so what they're doing is they are now taking power away from the new elected Democratic Secretary of State. They're also trying to essentially overturn the ballot initiative. One of the things that the ballot initiative does is it says that there should be election day registration. You should be able to register and you should be able to vote on election day. Increases voter turnout by up to 10%. They are now trying to limit election day registration to only 14 days before the election, which is not election day registration. That's just cutting off registration 14 days before the election. That to me seems to be clearly unconstitutional because you had a ballot initiative that was passed by the voters with 67% support to change the state's constitution. Now the legislature is basically trying to overturn that law. I am very concerned this is going to happen elsewhere, Sam, because 7 different states passed ballot initiatives in 2018 to expand voting rights in some form or another, most prominently in Florida, where they restored voting rights to up to 1.4 million ex-felons. I'm concerned in all of these states that have Republican legislatures, they're going to come back in session, either in the lame duck or the regular session. They're going to try to overturn these ballot initiatives, overturn the will of the voters. And the whole purpose of doing ballot initiatives was because Republicans wouldn't do this legislatively. So I'm concerned this is another way. We're not seeing this in Wisconsin, but we're starting to see this in Michigan. This is going to be another way in which states are going to try to overturn the will of the people. We're already seeing it in Ohio, where they also passed an initiative to reform the state's redistricting process. They have incredibly gerrymandered maps in Ohio for Republicans. Now they're trying to change the entire process of getting initiatives on the ballot to make it much more difficult to do that in the future.
Now, okay, let me just clarify one thing in Ohio. So Ohio, the voters voted for an independent commission to gerrymander, or I should say to redistrict come 2020. Can the Ohio State Legislature is not retroactively reversing that? Are they?
No, they're not retroactively reversing it. I mean, Ohio is an unbelievably incredible state. I mean, in Ohio, candidates for the legislature got 50% of the vote, but they have a super majority.
Yeah, let's put
this
let's put this graphic up there because we have this graphic. I want to show it. This is, I guess, from the Maddow show. This is really stunning. This is the popular vote versus seats won in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. I imagine this dynamic happens in other states, but nothing to this degree. Wisconsin State House, the popular vote was Democratic 53%, Republicans 45%. The seats won was not even just flipped. It was 64% was Republicans, 36% Democrats. This is bizarre. It's bizarre. In Michigan,
completely bizarre.
In Michigan, same thing, 52 to 47, and the seats won was 47 to 53. In North Carolina, popular vote, 50% Democrats, 47% Republicans, and is 46% of the seats went to Democrats and 54% of the seats went to Republicans. Same thing in Pennsylvania. Even after, is that Pennsylvania one even after the state Supreme Court changed the district?
They only changed the districts for the congressional races.
Oh, right.
So the state house and the state senator are still gerrymandered.
There you go.
I assume that's for the 2018 election.
Yep.
But anyway, in Ohio, Republicans got 50% of the vote in Ohio. So you'd assume it would be a 50-50 delegation. Instead, they have a super majority in the legislature. I mean, Ohio, it's been trending Republican, but it's nowhere near a Republican supermajority state. I mean, we're not talking about Mississippi.
Right. This is not Alabama. Right.
Oklahoma here. But yet they have a super majority in the legislature, so they're going to be able to do whatever they want in the next session. But what they did is right now, to get an initiative on the ballot, you need majority support to pass it. They are now going to try to change that to 60% support to pass it. They are also going to say that if you want to do a signature drive, and this is a little in the weeds, but this kind of stuff has a lot of impact, that if you're collecting signatures to get an initiative on the ballot, previously they didn't expire and you had until July to do it. Now the signatures are only valid for 180 days and you have to get it on the ballot beginning of April, meaning you have to collect all of the signatures during the winter in Ohio. And if you've ever been to Cleveland in the winter, Sam, it's not a very pleasant place. So they're basically saying, not only do you need more support to do this, but you better gather all of these signatures when it's completely freezing, in the middle of the winter, when it's 10 degrees in Cleveland, the wind's coming off the lake, and it's dark at 3 p.m. Good luck doing that. So this is like the next frontier. It's like, so you try to, what we're seeing in all 4 of these states is you try to strip Democrats of power. You try to make it harder to vote. And then when voters say we don't like either of those two things, we're just going to do it by initiative and bypass the legislative process altogether, then you overturn the will of the people by changing the initiatives themselves or basically making it impossible to do initiatives in the future. I think all of this has to be seen as part of a larger Republican strategy, which is basically just a fundamental contempt for democracy. And my question, Sam, is what do you do about a political system
Isn't it Donald Trump? Isn't the problem Donald Trump? Isn't Donald Trump like uniquely anti-democratic?
That's the fascinating thing to me, is that if you were paying attention to the behavior of Republican legislatures since 2010, what was going on in Wisconsin, what was going on in North Carolina, what was going on in Michigan and elsewhere, Donald Trump shouldn't have been a surprise, because I think Donald Trump is reflective of a larger disregard for democracy in the Republican Party.
Yeah,
as
who do
opposed
people
to being
think?
The one.
Who do people think are giving Donald Trump these ideas? This guy doesn't know enough about civics to have come up with anything. You know, I mean, that's the thing, is that this is Donald Trump is there because it's the Republican Party, not vice versa. And all right, so let me ask you this:
the Republican Party has been conditioned to do this kind of stuff. Only a Republican Party that would support these kind of things would vote for someone like Donald Trump in the first place. And so I think if you really want to understand the Republican Party, don't focus on Trump. Focus on what they're doing where they have power on the state level. And, of course, that then extends to things like Mitch McConnell stealing a Supreme Court seat from Barack Obama.
Yes. All right. So, and frankly, the Republican-dominated Supreme Court smashing Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? I mean, these is all part of a whole. Now, here's the thing, and this is, I guess, a multi-part question. One, what are the Democrats doing about it? And two, sort of a subset of this question is like, do Democrats even have a consciousness of the way that we are talking about this? Like, this is not just a series of coincidences. Like, wow, look at what the Republican Party's doing in Wisconsin. That seems very similar to what the Republican Party's doing in North Carolina, which is similar to what they did in Michigan, which is similar to what they did. I mean, down the line, right? Is it because the Democratic Party apparatus or the media whatever the blob is here, whether it's like sort of beltway journalists or corporate mainstream journalists or however you want to talk about it, the media does not seem to absorb and internalize this phenomena that we're seeing, which is, Scott Walker was doing this in 2011, right? I mean, we saw this happen there. The failure of the media and maybe simultaneously, I don't know how to disaggregate this, the failure of the Democratic establishment to recognize this is inhibiting a response.
Well, so I think they're slightly different things, the Democrats and the media, in terms of what's going on here. I think that Democrats just have a fundamental faith in the political. They win elections, that will be enough, even if they win them under unfair rules, which is what happened in Wisconsin, North Carolina, and other states. The political system was already rigged against them, but they fought under those rules, and they were able to actually make some pretty significant advances in terms of winning governor seats and things like that. And I think they just thought, oh, well, we won the election, and we passed these ballot initiatives, and things will play out. And I think, once again, they got caught flat-footed, that the indivisibles of the world, the swing lefts of the world, all of these new groups that sprang up thought, oh, well, we won these elections, and then come January 2019, we'll work inside the legislature to try to advance our agenda. And it's like, I don't think people were prepared for Republicans just immediately after these victories to try to undercut them, and they probably should have been. And I think that basically the notion is that you can never rest. That you're going to have the same 24/7 movement to try to defend democracy that Republicans have to try to undermine democracy. And I know that's exhausting. I mean, Sam, I'm exhausted from covering this stuff. I just covered an entire election defined by voter suppression in Georgia and other states. Now I'm having to cover it all over again in a lame duck session. I mean, I think there is a level of fatigue here. I think people are exhausted. I think that's one of the reasons Republicans are trying to push this through now, is to try to do it under the cover of darkness. Now, this thing in Wisconsin has blown up. It has gotten a lot of attention. It will be challenged in court. So I think that in some ways, not that it backfired on them, because if they pass it on law, it won't have backfired on them. But they weren't able to sneak it on.
They didn't get away with it the way that they. Yeah,
they didn't get away with it.
Well, let me ask you this.
But the media, I worry more about the media though, because as I said earlier, I do think the media is so conditioned to do both sides of them that they are just fundamentally unwilling to say the Republican Party doesn't care about democracy. From Donald Trump to Republicans in Wisconsin to Republicans in North Carolina throwing out absentee ballots, stealing votes, the Republican Party just fundamentally does not believe in the democratic process. And that's the reality we're living with. And that is the fundamental truth of American politics right now. That is the one thing, if someone came here from Mars and said, what do I need to understand about the American politics? I would say Republicans don't believe in democracy. That is the number one thing you need to understand. But I don't think the media either understands.
Bye-bye.
Are you there, Ari?
I'm there. Yeah, I'm there.
Sorry, good. Yeah, the media doesn't. Well, all right. Let me ask you this then, Ari. Why aren't you talking about the Black Panther Party and the way they're interfering with the vote?
I'm assuming you're joking, Sam.
Yeah, I am joking. But all right. Well, so let me ask you this: where is? I mean, I agree with you with this problem with the media. I think we can, press the media as much as we can, and hopefully there'll be more coverage of these type of things. But where is, for instance, like, why isn't there an institution within the DNC, let's say? Like, why doesn't the DNC have, maybe the DNC is the wrong place for it, although I don't know where it would go. Like, why isn't there some type of institutional support to, come up with, because I presume most of this stuff, right, was developed in the context of some ALEC-like, if not ALEC itself. This is the American Legislative Exchange Council, where these sort of like state-by-state initiatives are developed. Why isn't there any pushback? Have you heard of any institutional, attempts at dealing with this?
Well, I mean, there are some groups that are dealing with this. For example, Eric Holder is a group that's trying to work on changing the redistricting process by electing more Democrats at the statewide level, by pushing ballot initiatives, things like that. I just think the fundamental asymmetry comes into play here, Sam, because Democrats are focused on winning elections and passing ballot initiatives and doing things through the normal process of politics, whereas Republicans are just completely dismissive of the rules of the game. They've either rigged them or they just completely ignore them or they change them in lame duck sessions. And I think it's very, very difficult when one party is completely opposed to democracy and one party fundamentally believes in democracy. That's just such a level of asymmetry there that you would hope in the long term that those who believe in democracy win, but it's very, very difficult for them if they're constantly dealing with undemocratic means. And so, I think they're going to do what they always do, which is try to challenge things to the court, try to do that. But I'm just worried here that this dynamic's going to play out, continue to play out for the next 2 years, and in fact get worse as we deal with Donald Trump's reelection, as we deal with the next redistricting cycle. I mean, if Republicans are behaving like this now, you can only imagine how they're going to behave when they might actually lose power after 2020 through the next redistricting cycle. And so I think this is all a prelude to what we're going to see play out over the next 2 years.
Well, Ari Berman, I appreciate, I know it's got to be exhausting for you. I remember when you were like, I'm going to write a book about the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. Oh, my God, it's all fallen apart. But I appreciate your coming on and telling us about it. And folks, if you are in one of these states, Michigan, North Carolina, and Wisconsin in particular, but others, get on the horn to your state reps and tell them, I see what you're doing, and just make sure they know that you're at the very least, that you're looking and watching. Ari Berman, thanks so much for the time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Sam. Great to talk to you again.
Okay, and before we head into the fun half, ladies and gentlemen, let's play a clip. This clip coming out of North Carolina's 9th congressional district. This story is nuts, and it is. We bundled it together because obviously it deals with voting improprieties. What's going on in the State House? And I don't know exactly what the latest is out of Wisconsin today. And I'm also, and I did not ask this of Ari, I meant to, and I don't know that he has any insight into it. But back in 2011, when Scott Walker was passing through a host of bills that would get rid of the Wisconsin health care. They had I think it was called Badger Care, and also to essentially begin to dismantle unions in Wisconsin. I think it was 14 Wisconsin state senators left the state. In fact, I think that's what that sign is back there. The Wisconsin 14 never gave up, and neither will we. They left the state and held out for as long as they could, preventing a quorum. Now, the thing is, though, is that they weren't going to wait for 4 years. There was no way to do that. Eventually, I think state cops came and found them and brought them back. It seems like, and I don't know, and I don't know if any of our Wisconsin experts are listening at the moment. If they are, text me. But it seems like this might be an opportunity for a redux on that. Leaving the state, you would only have to stay out of the state and hide, essentially. You'd have to hide. Until Evers took office. So at least there's, 30, 40 days. I imagine these state senators don't want to miss Christmas with their family. Maybe
family somewhere warm.
Right. Pay for all the families to go. Who knows?
I would just go somewhere and play video games.
Well, I know, but that's also why you probably
get him a Red Dead bundle.
That's why you would not be elected.
No problem. There won't be another quorum.
I'd be perfect once I got there.
Red Dead 2's out.
Yeah, no,
I will be back to vote for health care.
I'm gonna go on the lam, digitally and in real life.
This is like the
Fuck!
beginning.
They found me in my mom's basement again.
This is like a total early '90s movie, I think, where like Matt's just playing video games and his roommate, gets elected to state legislature, and then his roommate is like, dude, I gotta hide out. I gotta hide out because the
Republicans.
You gotta be me. What?
The Republicans are gonna end democracy if you don't be me for 3 weeks.
Right.
Okay, I'll be you. I'm boring. I'm a state senator.
There you go.
I want to write that screenplay.
And go back in time to a different era where it would be sellable. All right. But so out of about a week ago, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, I mentioned that for some reason in this District 9 in North Carolina, a race we didn't follow too closely, but a Republican only won by 900 votes. The local election board refused to certify it. And there was some implication because there was one area where there were problems. Well, apparently, and maybe this has been going on for a while, it sort of sounds like, there was a practice. Well, there was a wide disparity in returns on absentee ballots. Like in every other district in the state, the Republican was like averaging around, like I think around 20% in terms of what they would get in terms of absentee ballots. Obviously, in North Carolina, where there's been a tremendous amount of voter suppression, Democrats have been using absentee ballots as a way of making sure that they get their ballot in, that they know that they can vote, et cetera, et cetera. And so the average is that they're winning in terms of absentee ballots. In this one district, it was like completely the opposite. And it was a little bit suspicious. And the disparity between the number of people who had asked for absentee ballots, particularly Democrats, and had returned was seemingly way off. And so the reporters from Channel 9 in, I don't know where exactly, North Carolina this is. This is in Bladen County. And they were tracking down people involved who apparently had been picking up ballots on behalf of the Republican Mark Harris. And this is reporter Joe Bruno. This is the interview he was doing with a woman that he found who apparently was picking up the ballots. So.
Just, I don't, McVicker and Harris and all them, that's who he was working.
Eason says she never discarded ballots or saw who people were voting for. But after picking them up, she didn't mail them. She gave them to McCrae Dallas.
Did all the people who voted, did their votes count?
I guess. Like I said, I don't know nothing what happened after I dropped them off. No.
So you don't know with certainty whether they were sent to the elections office?
No, I don't. No. I don't know. I dropped them off. What they do, that's on them.
Yeah, I drop them off. What they do is on them. So apparently she dropped them off to this guy, McCrae Dowless, and he was the local Bladen County Soil and Water Conservation District Vice Chair, which apparently is an elected position. Has a criminal record. Maybe he made some mistakes back in the day and he's reformed, or maybe not. Apparently,
so no.
Apparently, this is where she was dropping off the ballots, and he's been paid consulting fees for different Republicans. There is now a suspicion that this has been going on for years in that county. And they suspect that maybe this happened during the primary. Apparently, Johnson, this is the candidate, received 98% of absentee by mail-in votes. This is in a primary.
So good.
So they had sort of figured it out. I mean, this is the campaign finance reports confirmed that the Bladen County Sheriff paid Dallas $7,000 was as a get out the vote. This is, I think, in the sheriff's race. So the guy has been doing this in that neighborhood for Republican candidates for some time. There's going to be arrests here. People are going to go to jail, and they're going to redo that vote. And if the Democrat has any competence whatsoever, he's going to go around to these people and be like, incidentally, your vote was stolen. This time you're going to get to do it for reals. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But a little bit more sexy, I guess, maybe for the national media than the idea of an entire state legislature saying, oh, we lost the election, so now we're going to disempower the governor and the next state house. Just
Damn
bizarre.
it, Darlene. Don't just say you just handing them off like that. Gotta create an order of plausible deniability.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's the fun half, folks. Just a reminder, your support makes this show possible. You can become a member by going to you can become a member by going to jointhemajority.report.com. Signing up for membership not only is a way of supporting this daily show, but also gets you extra content every day. And sick of commercials? We cut out the commercials for members. So many benefits. It never ends, ladies and gentlemen. Also, don't forget, justcoffee.coop, 30% off this month. Just actually for the next 2 weeks. 30% off. No coupon code needed. Just head over to their justcoffee.coop. Also, we are close to, only a third of the tickets left now?
Less than.
Less than a third of the tickets left?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm. And after our first day under 10, we shot way up yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
Folks, you got to do this now. If you want to come to the live Majority Report show Sunday afternoon, January 13th, $15, 18 and over. Bring your 18 and 1 day old child to the show.
Bring your large adult sons to
Bring your large adult sons or daughters to the show.
Picturing it's like a Will Ferrell vehicle. I'm picturing now.
It's combined with the other one.
Yeah.
You can get information on the show at our website at majority.fm. We also have links to Michael's show in February as well. Michael, speaking of shows, today's Tuesday.
Tonight, 7 o'clock, we're live with comedian Mike Racine. We're talking about the mafia. We're talking about O&A and the alt-right and a drug cartel history of George H.W. Bush. At 6 o'clock, a live stream with Kyle Kalinske beforehand on the Michael Brooks Show YouTube channel. Patreon.com/TMBS for it all.
And Matt?
Yeah, Literary Hangover. We're going to do Democracy and Change. Actually, tomorrow's my birthday.
What?
Happy birthday, man.
You're playing really close to the
best. I will be 30. So if you wanted to give me a 30th birthday gift, you could become a patron at patreon.com/literary hangover. And I'm going to be researching Democracy and Chains. That episode will be out this weekend.
I'm very excited for this Democracy and Chains episode because I stand by that book very strongly. I think it's really important.
I stand by a lot of it. I think there's certain qualifications you can make, but I think it's very revealing to actually. It's way more revealing to get into the weeds than I thought it would be actually.
Exciting. Can't wait to hear that. The Corey Robin, if people haven't heard yet, a very good episode.
All right, folks. Quick break. Fun half. 646-257-3920. Don't forget, I'm not sure if they've posted the new Antifada at patreon.com/theantifada, but you check it out. See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you can imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Almost says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
I am a total cunt.
Can we bring back DJ Dannerky's song, please?
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Dannerky.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break for people.
That's fucking nonsense.
Hey, folks, reminder.
I do not have Parkinson's.
I And the alpha males are
Psych. Fuck 'em. Fuck 'em. Almost says what? What? Almost says what?
Hell of a lot of bank. 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 Hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keep it at 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on! Fuck 'em. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday! Happy birthday to me, Jew boy! I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are back. Africans are black.
Come on! Come on! Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
That holds up so well.
We are back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Let's go to the phones. You're calling from a 215 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. It's Mindy. How are you?
Mindy, how are you?
Good. I'm listening to Ari Berman. I'm like getting stressed out over what was just going on with that. I think that the reason why, I'm like trying to read up about it because I'm in Pennsylvania, like as you know, and it's probably could happen here too. Anywhere, I guess. But the point is that it's regional. So when it's regional, like nobody cares about it except the people in the state, unless it happens to them. And then the people in the state, it's such a complicated issue that nobody like knows how to explain it, and so nobody deals with it because it's not and it's just one of those things that it's just so complicated that people are scared of it.
I think you're right. We saw this. Look, we saw this on some level we saw it happen in North Carolina. We saw it happen in Michigan to some extent over the years. I think it's right. It doesn't get the national attention, particularly in in an era with Donald Trump, and even then we don't see it as much, and I don't know what the answer is, because that's why it feels like something where the institutions really need to get on this big time, because there's really no other mechanism that is going to deal with this in the way that it needs to be dealt with on some level. I agree. It's very frustrating, and that's why I wanted to have Ari on about it. But I don't know what the answer is.
No, and as far as Twitter is concerned, I'm just going to use me as an example, of course, because I'm, but I have a zillion followers on Twitter. I can tweet something and I can get 10,000 likes on something in a day. That's not even that interesting, like a Meghan McCain tweet. You're a spoiled brat, Meghan McCain, 10,000 likes on it.
Right.
People are interested. I can tweet about what's happening in Wisconsin. Literally, I'll do it, and I'll put your name, and I'll at you. You'll see. I'll get 100 retweets. I will get. I could write. Anybody can write the smartest tweet about this, and nobody's interested because they don't understand it. It's just not. Now Avenatti.
Well, what's Avenatti doing now?
Well, he said he's not being president. He's not going to run for president. Like, who the fuck gives a shit if he runs for president? He wasn't going to win. He had no shot. He had absolutely no shot of winning, yet he's trending. But Scott Walker stealing, the democracy in Wisconsin's not trending. Like, it makes no sense at all. It's just people, I think people are just stupid. And then the thing with, could you imagine somebody coming to your house and saying, listen, I know that you're like an early voter, and I'm just going to take that application for you and just give it to them?
I mean, if people don't know the process, I can understand that. But, you can write the foreword to my book. It's the electorate is stupid.
No, blaming the electorate.
Oh, blaming the electorate.
Would you give somebody your absentee ballot?
Sure I would.
Of course not.
Yes.
But, I mean, I'm a bad example.
Actually,
right?
that's,
Right.
you did give me your absentee ballot to mail it.
That's what I'm saying.
I guess.
No,
I mean,
but it makes no sense.
all right.
The
Brendan and
mainstream
I
media
played
will
paper
not pick
airplanes
this
with
up.
it.
Nobody will talk about
Bridge
it.
Street.
Just they won't talk about it, and it's just going to be when they finally do talk about it, it's going to be too late, and we're going to be so gerrymandered, and we're going to be so screwed. It's just. You would think that our people. You would think that the Dems would be on it, and they're so not even.
Well, I mean,
on
the
it.
problem is
wouldn't.
the problem is that it's just there's a lot of like I don't know if it's the prisoner's dilemma, but there's a lot of people looking around going like, you got this, right? Like, I mean, nobody there's no I mean, to be fair, there's no apparatus that a party has to like, oh, how are we going to fight? And I'm not even sure how you would fight this.
Well,
I mean, you need to go out and raise money on it.
Perez actually said the only thing that was interesting about Perez when he was running for DNC chair was that he was going to prioritize all issues at least related to voter suppression. So theoretically,
I mean, this
they
isn't
should
voter
be-
suppression per
well,
se.
It
so
would fall
whiny,
under a
Michael.
broader
I cannot even
purview
listen
of
to him. He's so
Republicans
whiny.
stealing.
Yeah.
Republicans stealing elections, and when they lose elections, mounting legislative coups.
I mean, it's I don't know. It's a problem. I don't know why there hasn't been more attention.
A good thing to do would be to, when the Dems get in power in the House, that they could just say, there's no voting in the lame duck session. Can't they do that?
I mean, I think it's possible to make some structural changes, but I don't know how you're going to get into that situation where you're going to be able to make those structural changes.
I don't know. The psychopath Republicans figure it out. We can't figure this out. I mean, aren't we the smarter ones? I mean, we can't figure shit out like this.
Yeah, I look.
Sometimes being smart is not helpful. I mean, they just go.
Well,
and
I
take
absolutely
things.
did not.
Yeah, right.
Vote
They're
any
ruthless.
solution. I just
They're
thought this was-
ruthlessness.
Democrats need to worry a lot less about being smart and
Look,
a lot more about being ruthless.
The best thing you can do at this point, if you're in Wisconsin, call your state reps. Call your state reps or go out to the state house. If you're in Georgia, vote today. Get 5 other people to
Stacey
vote.
Abrams, yeah, don't you think Stacey Abrams definitely won that election?
Definitely.
I mean, I think there was
Everybody could have
more
voted.
votes available for her. I think that, like, I don't know if there were votes that were destroyed, but I think like there were more voters who wanted to vote for her who were prevented from voting. It sort of depends on when you're going to start the clock. But nevertheless, yes. Do I think it was a fair and free election? No. And do I think she would have won a fair and free election? Yes. And all the more reason to go out and vote in Georgia today and getting other people to vote. And, this Secretary of State is exactly where this stuff happens. So appreciate the call, Mindy.
Now, last point.
Yeah.
Wait, last point. I always have to do one extra point.
Right. No, of course.
This guy that was running in North Carolina that supposedly won by 900 votes.
Right.
That they're gonna redo the vote. Like, why is he even going to be allowed to run? Shouldn't he be in jail? Like, you don't think he had anything to do with this? Don't you think he's the criminal?
I think it's going to be hard to imagine that this is not going to go back to that guy. I mean, it's conceivable he just paid a consultant who paid another consultant and they had no idea. Like, he pays a consultant. You know, I pay Michael, and I'm like, Michael, how are you going to get me to win? He goes, you don't want to know.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, well, I just think if you can come up with a solution, you can give me some way to get it out there, I'd be more than happy to get it out there, but I can't think of anything that people are interested in that isn't like gossip or pop culture shit.
I hear you. Believe me.
How about
Thanks, Mindy.
How about Meghan McCain?
Thanks for the call.
You insult Meghan McCain, and then you just tag, and there's a legislative coup in Wisconsin
Right, exactly.
going on. Just do a little 2 for tweet.
Now, look, there's a lot of talk here about paying people to support your candidacy. A couple of things I want to stitch together. You've had those screen grabs, right? A lot of people have been attempting to promote my candidacy for the Senate 2022. I am, at this time, not going to make a commitment one way or another, keeping my options open. I will say that we do have some early data that suggests that maybe there's an opportunity for me. Last night, my understanding is the state of New York released the vote tallies for write-in candidates for governor in the 2018 elections. If we could pop this up on the screen, you will see that I received 2 write-in votes, one for me as governor and one for me as governor on a ticket with Cynthia Nixon where she would be the lieutenant governor.
A little downgrade because of the primary appearance, I guess.
Right.
But still nice. I didn't know you could double vote like that.
No, it's not the same vote. It's 2 different voters.
Oh, okay.
It was just
sketched in on one line 2 different people.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think you can do that.
I don't. Well, you can write in anything you want. I mean, it won't count though.
Well, it's unclear. We have decided probably not to contest the fact that was not counted. Now, I will say this. Somebody made the point that Virgil, Texas, from Chapo Trap House, got 3 votes, which, of course, is 1 more vote than me. Now, I will say that Virgil, Texas, outspent me probably 10-1.
He was campaigning very aggressively.
He was everywhere.
For the nominal.
He was in this office.
Yes.
Campaigning.
He was in this office campaigning.
So the idea that I did.
He was reaching out to Ahmadinejad. I mean, it was a very aggressive campaign.
I had 2/3 the votes that he had, but almost like 0% of the campaigning and expenditures that he had suggests to me that I have a real shot at this.
Also, he had a book coming out.
A shot at taking out Schumer.
Well, I mean, I'm looking to 2022 now with Schumer.
Well, that's
all I'm saying is that these are data points.
Right.
And I want to say thank you to those of you who voted for me. I will do my best to uphold the standards and the ideals that inspired you to vote for me.
You know, my fondest wish is that some grifting Democratic consultant that is overselling Schumer on some elaborate polling and messaging package that he probably doesn't need, but might as well pay for with all of his Wall Street contributions. Somehow that data point ends up in some PowerPoint for an overpaid consulting package.
Seder has some strength.
Yeah. I think if you could see the right in here for a podcaster, there's some danger signals from the left, and you should really shell out.
So let's just say I'm not shutting any doors and leave it there. Meanwhile, back in Wisconsin, this is what was happening last night as the protesters were on the 4th floor of the state capitol. Folks may remember from 2011 similar images. They were shouting through the doors of a committee hearing where the lawmakers were considering these really unbelievably undemocratic, small d, measures to disempower the voters, really, and who they chose to run their state. And here you can see this now.
Protesters ascended on the Wisconsin state capitol today, decrying what they are calling a last-minute lame duck power grab by the state's Republican legislature.
There you go. So fortunately, Hayes was covering that last night. I think Rachel Maddow did as well. I imagine not so much on the other stations, but maybe. But
the disparity between like what Ricky Rubio was saying about voter fraud a couple of weeks ago versus what's happening in North Carolina now, and the silence can't be stressed enough.
It's crazy.
Ricky Rubio, the point guard.
Oh yeah, the point guard for the Jazz. His silence has been.
I thought that was your new nickname for Marco Rubio.
Marco's bad. Marco's worse.
Much worse.
So speaking of repeating lies that seemed to not die. And we went through this. Who was it the last time that said that? Was it Mike Pence?
Yeah.
Past this lie, we looked it up. There's no truth to it whatsoever. There's no reports to substantiate this. It's a complete lie. Steve Scalise, famous in his words for being like
David Duke
without the baggage. In promoting what he would do for his constituents. Presumably, I can get rid of the black guys without having to have all the baggage around of being KKK.
Secret message received.
So, yeah, exactly. Not so secret. That's not even a dog whistle. That's really just sort of like a dog encouragement. It's just like, here, boy. It's pretty explicit. He was on Fox, and, one of the great things about being like David Duke without the baggage is you can go on Fox and Friends as a high-ranking Republican official and say huge lies with sort of a racist, xenophobic undertone, and nobody even questions you.
This fight's going to continue on, and clearly what we're battling over is to make sure that we can fund our border security properly, build the wall, give President Trump the money he needs to keep America safe. It's not just about the wall. That's real important. It's about safety across the border. And you see with this caravan coming, over 600 confirmed convicted criminals in the caravan. Every single day in America. And why do we need to secure the border? Every single day in America, on average, 10 known terrorists try to cross our border. This is real. It's a serious threat. President Trump's fighting to secure our border. We need to give him the money he needs.
Will he be able to get the money he needs?
Yeah. Well, oh my God, you sold us. 10 known terrorists are trying to cross the border every day. Are we arresting these people? Or are we just simply saying like, oh, hey, why did you walk up to us and just announce that you are one of the known terrorists that we have on our known terrorist watch list? It's weird. Come up at the border. Very strange.
Yeah, but you can't do anything about it.
You know what was
because
great?
We have such a
the caravan census, where everybody was super honest about all the convictions they had.
I'm an economic migrant looking to make more money through crime in the United States. I'm an associate of Hamas.
Well, I'm
a military-age man.
And I've got to write down on this form you're giving me, Mr. Republican census taker, that I also have a criminal conviction. I mean, say
multiple.
Like, does it even occur to like the reporters there to say, how do you know that? Isn't it weird that we never hear about all of these terrorists, the 3,600 terrorists who've tried to enter the country just this past year.
Isn't it
known
weird?
terrorists. You've already stopped. The Trump administration already stopped over 7,000 known terrorists.
Yes,
Isn't it weird
coming
that
into
we
the
don't
country.
live inside 24?
Yeah, how many are getting through? If 10 are trying to cross the border,
We are batting 1,000.
Man,
We've stopped 7,000 this year alone.
Batting
3,600 this year alone.
Batting 1,000.
Batting 1,000.
Batting 1,000.
Thank God.
Baseball humor.
And he is turning over the tables in the swamp.
There you go. Tables turned over.
That is almost this like a Boschian image. Like there's a swamp, but there's tables in it, and the tables are part of the corruption. But then it's like the money changers, I guess.
Swampy
with Jesus.
tables.
Like
Yes. Swampy tables.
It's amazing.
Swampy tables, just like we had in Jerusalem, which is the desert.
a lot of people don't know Jesus spent time in Florida.
When Jesus came to the Everglades and he said to those Jew retirees, "You won't do what you did in Hungary." Dave Rubin and I were discussing this, as well as his civility to the Muslims.
This moment was pretty funny. This is sort of a Matt pick, right? This is apparently Donald Trump does not like to be called Donald.
Which makes sense. Kind of a goofy name.
I mean, if you say it enough, it's like, "Hi, Donald."
I mean, it's a Disney name.
Yeah.
Donald. Donald, did you eat?
Donald, did you launder money again?
Donald, come down here and rub Mama's feet.
Donald, did you say another bizarre thing about your daughter on Howard Stern?
Donald, go pick up after your brother. So apparently this is a fairly well known. I wasn't familiar with it, but of course I would never address the guy. But if I was, let's say, the head of a state, nation, and I said I want, my briefing book, tell me everything that could get under this guy's skin, tell me everything that could make this guy feel good. And if I was Trudeau in Canada, and I've now decided this isn't going to work out between us. Justin Trudeau realizes that or maybe things aren't going to happen with Melania or Ivanka or whatever.
That would be even better.
Wasn't there one point where he was like,
supposedly his Ivanka, I think, was giving him eyes.
There's a tariff on my daughter.
But
that would throw him off.
So now he realizes,
Donald,
this
tell
is
your
not.
daughter I say hi.
I've got to distance myself from Donald Trump. I mean, every world leader now who is still, I should say, every world leader that has to deal with a democracy is finding the way to pick up 5 points is just to humiliate Donald Trump in some fashion. And so here is Justin Trudeau, just during the course of a speech referencing Donald. And Donald has a completely knee-jerk reaction. It's really just a look on his face, but it is rather precious.
Make no mistake, we will stand up for our workers and fight for their families and their communities. And Donald, it's all the more reason why we need to keep working to remove the tariffs on steel and aluminum between our countries.
You're not happy. And I like how he looks back, and Donald, and then looks back again just to see the look on his face to get a little kick out.
What I enjoy.
Oh, we have the reaction set up. Okay, here. This is even better. You can see it better.
And Donald, it's all the more reason why we need to keep working to remove the tariffs on steel and aluminum between our countries.
What I love is that I'm not even pointing out hypocrisy here. It's just funny. Like a guy who goes through life. He threw, let's just take it on this level, forget even Twitter. He threw a starburst at Angela Merkel at a meeting and said, "Don't say I never did anything for you." Right? And then the guy goes, "Donald," and he just has a total this is just zero class.
This is the treatment I get.
This is just total disrespect. It's aggrievement. That's your word.
Yeah.
It's always aggrievement with these people. It's
Always.
incredible.
This is pretty disgusting. So there's a plan to name a Washington, D.C. street after Jamal Khashoggi. He's the journalist, writer who was killed by the Saudis. He was a U.S. resident. Apparently had a lot of friends at the Washington Post. That's where he worked. I think there's a lot of people I would like to see a street named after. I'm not sure that Khashoggi would be the first one that I would do, but whatever. If there's a constituency to do that in D.C., then fine. But here is Seb Gorka, who apparently has a real issue with this. The idea I have to drive my Mustang down that road. But here he is. Here's how disgusting, how desperate the Trumpies are to avoid this crap show around Mohammed bin Salman. And one has to wonder just how many of them are getting paid to maintain this relationship.
Quick little blurb that we noticed in the local papers yesterday. It's about a neighborhood here in the District of Columbia. A group just voted to rename the street in front of the Saudi embassy for Jamal Khashoggi. What do you make of that?
Why would you name a street after a man who was best friends with Osama bin Laden and a member of the Muslim Brotherhood? Yes, he was murdered, and that was unjust, that was wrong. But this is not some saint and champion of democracy. His last article for Post was about the need for theocracy and supporting the Muslim Brotherhood. Would we rename streets in D.C. after Ayman al-Zawahiri, the head of Al-Qaeda? Would we rename streets after KSM, the mastermind of the 9/11 hijacking? It's a little peculiar, to say the least.
It's a little peculiar. Like, as if, what is the nefarious thing going on? You know, here is a perfect example of how poorly we do our jobs. Because if this happened, and it's impossible that the same circumstance would have happened under Trump, under Obama. Let's say, I mean, it's just impossible, right? There's no way the relationship would have been with the Saudis that they felt they could get away with this. Okay, there would have been some constraints, but just by chance, if something like this happened, and under Obama's presidency, a street was named after Khashoggi, that same hit by Seb Gorka would be classic. This proves Obama's Muslim Brotherhood.
Oh, I thought you were going to go the direction that David Axelrod would be on Washington Journal being like, gee, I don't know. I mean, he was best friends with bin Laden.
Well, no.
All of the nice Obama people just being like, I don't know. He was into theocracy.
No,
not saying he should have been cut up, but
this would be.
Oh yeah, this Obama is Obama's so weak
fault.
that they could just act with impunity.
Yeah,
I mean, I have to tell you, I agree. I don't know if Khashoggi would be my first choice either, but I do like the idea that it's in front of the Saudi embassy.
Right,
that makes me support it. And the other thing too is I mean, he's clever enough to just basically be like, the dead can't sue for slander.
Right. Exactly.
Like, that's an extraordinary claim.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to say, I mean, just a little housekeeping on it. Like, this guy was a Saudi royal advisor and supported the Mujahideen in the 80s, along with, us.
Right.
The entirety of the U.S. military and intelligence apparatus. And was moving.
We enabled it.
We outsourced.
Funded it.
We funded it and let the Pakistan. We helped coordinate it. The Saudis funded it, and then we outsourced the practicalities to the Pakistanis. So when he was there, that was as American as apple pie. As in, Ronald Reagan compared these people. He said they were the moral equivalent of our founding fathers. And yes, he was working with religious groups and criticizing the Saudi monarchy because that's the only political game in town there, unfortunately. And he's conservative. I don't know. I don't want Mike Pence's policy advisor to get cut up in an embassy, right? Like, how just the utter inhumanity you have to go there is also just sort of jaw dropping, along with what even by their standards is just like he could have said he's Muslim Brotherhood, which is not true, but whatever. But he's like Osama bin Laden, like I was Osama bin Laden's bestie, and then I lived in Saudi, and now I'm at the Washington Post, and yeah.
Well, and speaking of troubling connections, which is worse, Vitesse Rand or the Muslim Brotherhood?
Vitesse Rand was, well, frankly, not as on the scene right now. I wear it with my Mandarin collar. Jamal Khashoggi's grieving wife can't sue me because her husband's dead. Him and Osama bin Laden used to go to the bathhouses together, massage each other. So I'm not sure they should have a street named after him. Why can't I get back on Fox? C-SPAN is so lame. I actually have to give full answers here.
Let's go to the phones. Calling from a 509 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Is this me?
Yes.
This is Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan. What can I do for you, Ronald Reagan?
Well, Dire Wolf on YouTube did a 30-minute breakdown of a video you did where you cited one of my tweets, and I feel really called out right now. So, normally you cut me off after about 2 minutes. I was hoping I could get a good 45 to respond.
A good 45 minutes. What was? Why don't you sum it up a little bit more? Why don't you?
I didn't actually watch the whole thing. It was really boring. But some guy did a 30-minute video about a video of you talking about my tweet, and it was pretty cool. But
did you
hey,
send that to your family? I mean, it's all been worth it.
Yep, I made it. This is why I went to law school. Real quick about Mindy and her Twitter power, which I don't doubt, but there is a kind of a phenomenon I've noticed. I talked to somebody working on our local congressional campaign during this last election, and she noted that there was a lot of hype people online. Like whenever our congressman would post something on Facebook, there were all these people saying you're going down, Newhouse, and we're coming for you, and Christine Brown. Lots of people really hyped online, and then they would put out a call for phone banking or canvassing and get literally zero volunteers. And so I do think, not to call out Mindy, I love Mindy, and I don't want her on my bad side again.
Right.
Or I don't want to be on her bad side, I should say. But there is this, I think, feeling that a lot of us get that like being extremely online is real or has some sort of, that it's reflective of real life. And I just feel like a lot of us should be more focused on getting out and doing real things in our communities. And, that I think that's a broader problem that we're seeing. But all
right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, it is easy to, and I don't think Mindy is guilty of this, but it is easy to assume that, just being online is really doing something relative to actually getting out and hitting the pavement.
Right. I wanted to say one other thing. So Jeff Sessions was really aggressive in this process where he would certify these immigration cases to himself and then issue really horrible decisions, which is an authority that Congress has given to attorneys general. And I didn't really think that this Whitaker guy was all that interested in immigration, I guess. But yesterday he certified a couple cases to himself. I think the takeaway is that it wasn't really Sessions, and it's probably not really Whitaker, that there's that Stephen Miller is probably behind some of this. But also, just more broadly speaking, I think Republicans are really good at having these ideas locked and loaded and ready to go for when they take power.
Right.
And you're definitely seeing that with immigration, that there are these think tanks that for literally decades have lined up their priorities. You know, this is what we're going to do, and they're doing it. So just real briefly, one of the cases that was certified yesterday has to do with family being a basis for protection under asylum laws, family is a social group. And it's pretty clear that that this is a way of whittling down protection for Central Americans and Mexicans seeking asylum in the country. And so, yeah. And then one other quick thing, to the extent that there's terrorists trying to enter the southern border, I don't know of any documented cases of that happening, but having these huge border spectacles where you have Border Patrol at ports of entry doing like exercises, and I mean, CBP has billions of dollars, but it's a limited agency in many respects. So those are officers who could be like actually looking for terrorists or drug dealers, and instead they're doing this whole theatrical thing, and it's clearly making us less safe, even by their own metrics. So anyways,
all right,
have a good one.
Appreciate the call. Good point. Calling from an 813 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam, it's Pete. How you doing?
Good. How you doing, Pete? Where are you calling from?
Tampa.
Okay.
So, Ari's interview that you did earlier, you know, he was talking about Republicans not being big fans of democracy, you know, not really believing in it, not believing in a democratic process. And, you know, I've got to agree with him just based on Republicans that I know and I've interacted with since 2010. And, you know, so while that may be a good point that he made, you know, having been a Republican for 3 decades and switching about 10 years ago when I supported the health care plan that Bob Dole had basically introduced to me when he ran for president, and they decided to switch sides on that issue because a black Democrat decided to run and go with it, you know, and I saw the hypocrisy in that. And, you know, that was like the first break that I had with the party, and ever since I've become increasingly liberal, a liberal Democrat. You remember those, right?
Right.
And so my issue with what I heard him saying, it wasn't with really what the point he was making, but what kind of, you know, sprang to mind was the treatment that Bernie got in the 2016 primary. You know, and I think, while I hate to make, you know, samesies arguments or play these false equivalencies like the Republicans do, because they do it a lot, but I mean, you could say that, you know, he wasn't really treated in keeping with, you know, democratic traditions in that primary. You know, you read Donna Brazil's book, you know. Well, I mean,
what do you mean?
Well, you know, like with Hillary making decisions about making the advertising decisions, or her campaign making the advertising decisions prior to the actual primary being held.
Well, I understand that she made advertising decisions, but I'm saying, structurally speaking, what do you imagine the DNC did that now? Because I know, I'm hearing somebody's headset here. I know that
it's not mine.
No, I'm talking about in the studio. I know that it's clear that the people working at the DNC were Hillary fans, not Bernie fans.
Right. Right.
I am aware that the debates were scheduled, at least it's my opinion. I don't know if there's evidence of this, but it's quite obvious, and it was obvious at the time. In fact, I was on MSNBC saying so at the time, that the debates were clearly scheduled in a way that they thought, I don't think it ultimately worked out that way, but they thought would help Hillary Clinton, because they didn't want as many people exposed to the debates, and that is sort of a classic like incumbent style technique. But outside of those two things, one which was arguably structural, the debates, being sort of undersold, the other just being, the personal biases of people at the DNC. What do you imagine was set up in a structural way to inhibit Bernie Sanders?
Well, I guess for me, I mean, if I
for
wasn't
everybody,
there on the ground,
for everybody,
I wasn't. I'm just saying, I wasn't there on the ground to see what was being done structurally, within the organization. Okay, but when you look at
what do you imagine could be done structurally by the DNC to inhibit one candidate's victory versus the other?
Well, I think that making advertising decisions certainly.
But they didn't actually execute.
From an ethical position.
No, I agree that's unethical. But they're making advertising decisions. To be clear, they're making advertising decisions about the general election, which she hadn't won yet, but have no implications on the primary.
Well, I think they're making that. You mean the ads that were?
I'm
run
asking
prior
you.
to the,
Here's the thing, and Peter, let me tell you why I'm getting frustrated. Because first off, to equate what happened with Bernie in that election to what is going on in Wisconsin or Michigan or Ohio is like, honestly, wait a second, not absolutely. Because if you were aware of what I was saying, to bring it up in that context is literally like saying, hey, you didn't let, is to be talking about a murder and then say, also, I noticed you didn't let Saul watch two episodes of Ninja Turtles last night. Like, I
totally get it.
They are completely different. And let me also add this. There is absolutely nothing that the DNC did that inhibited Bernie Sanders' victory. You could get rid of the DNC and Bernie Sanders would have done almost identically to what he did in that race. You could argue that a different organization would have had 7 debates or 10 debates, and they would have all been on a Tuesday night, and that would have changed things, which is, a hard argument to make, but I would even grant that. Because I actually think at the time, and said at the time, this is hurting Hillary Clinton more than it is Bernie Sanders. Because it's not. Bernie Sanders did well.
Though.
Excuse me. At the time. At the time that
these decisions were being made, right? So back then it
in
wasn't.
June.
It wasn't
No. Before the first debate. Before the first debate and after the first debate, I said it's hurting Hillary Clinton. Because it looks like she's hiding, and it's giving Bernie Sanders momentum. Now, I also wanted more debates, but that was the reality. That was the reality. I said it at the time. I say it now. There's no evidence.
Just so I understand.
But you're not
saying. What you're saying is that none of those decisions that she made about, or that her campaign made about the party's advertising. None of those decisions affected any advertisements before the primary.
Correct.
That's what you're saying?
Yes. All of those decisions about advertising were for after the convention. Now, it was inappropriate to assume that she would win and to let her formulate those ads, but there's no ads that were going out beforehand. The DNC's not spending any money on ads prior to the convention. It was inappropriate. It was unethical. But it had no implication on the primary. So don't say that. You can't. Not only can you not compare it to what's going on, it's just not the truth.
Okay, well, I'm not going to sit here and say that I know things that I don't know. I mean, it's just that the appearance of that was really, really cutting after that loss.
Well, I think people
maybe you know more than I do about this, and Maybe that's why you might be running for senator and I'm not. Okay, so I respect.
I did
that,
get
but
2 write-in votes,
especially with his.
I mean, I don't mean to get
especially
so,
with his nice attitude towards the electorate.
I don't mean to.
You're wrong.
Yeah, I don't
Vote
mean
for
to
me.
get so frustrated about it, but 2 years later, this myth that the campaign was rigged against Bernie Sanders is a lie. It's just a lie, and it is like the equivalent of saying that the problem with our government is not that we have people who want to enrich themselves or who favor a certain class of people like themselves. It has the same impact as saying like there are changelings who are actually lizard people and nothing we can do can control it. I mean, it's disempowering to say this. And it's not the case. It's just simply not the case.
I mean, if you look at primaries,
and yet Russia plays their games.
I don't know that Russia. I don't feel quite as confident about this, but I don't think that Russia changed the outcome of the election. I think there's, in to the extent that they influenced it at all, which they may have a little bit, but I don't think they changed the outcome of the election. I would say that that there was 10 other issues that would have been more pressing. But I can assure you that Bernie Sanders, there is no but for that you can point to having to do with the DNC that contributed to Bernie Sanders' loss.
I mean, if you just look at primaries from a historical perspective, they're getting more Democratic and not less. That's the long-term trend. And like a lot of what we're seeing is the parties, which are going to be institutionally biased against the left, dealing with that in sometimes shady ways.
Yeah, and I would say there's also definitively, I think, problems in specific states. New York is one of them, frankly, that have really crappy voting laws that make it hard to vote. But that's not because of Bernie Sanders. That's because of decades worth of New York State politicians want to protect their incumbency. It has nothing to do with the DNC. They don't control the voting that takes place in New York State. So I'm just like, I just don't like. I'm allergic to narratives that are BS, and this one in particular, I think, is like long past its shelf life. The only people it's just not the case. And I say this as someone who 15 years ago on national radio was not only just endorsing Bernie Sanders, the congressman from Vermont, but I think I was saying, like, I want every single member of Congress to be like Bernie Sanders.
Right.
And so
if he were to run again in 20, you think that he would have a welcome place at the table in terms of the primary process?
No, I don't think. I mean, I think. Look, there are. I don't know what a welcome place at the table is. I mean, F the DNC. Who cares? They're a small organization. They have control over. There's stuff that they can do to help Democrats, broadly speaking. They should be more, at least, it would be nice if they were, and their own bylaws suggest that they are supposed to be neutral in the context of a campaign. I don't know that they were neutral, but I don't know that their lack of neutrality means anything other than, like I say, within the scheduling of those debates. And, I think reasonable people could differ as to what the outcome would have been if those debates were out there. But, I mean, frankly, go back, watch the debates, go look at the press after the debates, go look at the states, the where he ran around the time of debates. They didn't seem to have much impact. Yeah. Now, maybe that was because they were on a Saturday night, maybe not. But, I watched these debates. I didn't think he destroyed her in these debates. And frankly, it was Martin O'Malley who came out with the word rigged about the debates.
Bring out the body bag.
So
I just
right,
bodied her.
Peter,
when did she start pulling the big crowds out? I went to see him in the Deep South, and he pulled 10,000 people, and it was like,
yeah,
where are the trolls? I mean, it was like,
His candidacy was much more interesting.
Social media.
Yeah, his candidacy was much more interesting, and the depth of his support, I would say, was much deeper. Like, I can tell you that, like, our listeners on this program would do a lot more for us, I think, than your average listener. Our average listener on this program would do a lot more for us than they would for your average listener on Pod Save America. But Pod Save America has, I don't know, 5-6 times the audience that we do? 10? I don't know.
Well, you keep titling your streams like Republicans lose, so they mount coups. I mean, that's got some flair right there.
All right.
Well, you know? I think you guys are going to expand.
I appreciate it, Peter. All right, thanks for the call, man. Thanks. I didn't mean to get so uptight about that.
Peter, if you talk about how the election was stolen from me, Sam will act like he has PMS. But don't worry, we won't let him rig it again. Because it was rigged. You hear me, you bastard?
Hey, good news, folks. Good news. There's an opportunity for you to influence Chuck Schumer. We've spoken many times in the past about how this guy keeps making deals with Republicans and trading something for nothing. He keeps ceding the high ground strategically and tactically because I don't know why he does that. He is inept in politics, and his politics themselves, not so great. And here is an opportunity for you to influence Chuck Schumer. But you're just going to need the ability to pay for your own apartment in the fourth most expensive part of the country. You're going to have to work full time for no money. Ladies and gentlemen, opening up this position of the unpaid press intern, the Democratic leader Charles Schumer's press office, to a wide range of young people who are looking to enter politics. But again, you're going to need to be loaded with cash. Democratic leader Charles Schumer's press office seeks full-time, unpaid interns in Washington, D.C. Starting in late December or early January, part-time interns will also be considered. But if you have to make money, I'm sorry, because candidates with full-time availability will be given preference.
The trouble is, it would be better if you could do it full-time.
It would be preferable if the candidate continued to work through the fall and into May because, it's one thing to take a couple of months off from your work business and spend down your savings, but we want someone who could do this for nearly a lifetime. Responsibilities include compiling press clips, answering reporter inquiries, organizing press conferences, writing press releases, talking points and memos, conducting research, and my guess would be formulating a strategy in which to fight back against Republicans, because only an unpaid intern could come up with stuff this dumb. Applicants must work well under pressure, have excellent written and oral communication skills, and a desire to learn, and, of course, a tremendous amount of money.
The sleep-deprived intern told me that we should confirm more judges. What does everybody else think? Hold on. I'm going to consult with my imaginary friends. And the Baileys say it's a go. So maybe we get some nosh, and you do social media updates all night. What's the matter? Your parents can't give you more money?
Previous experience in politics and press are not required, but candidates should have a general understanding of the government process, knowledge of the Northeast, and extremely wealthy parents. If interested, please send cover letter, resume, and your parents' bank statements via email to SchumerPressInternship@gmail.com.
Several forms of government ID, all of your parents' financials, as well as a credit rating.
How much do
and
you
a
think?
family genealogy, because I don't want your grandparents to have been some poor schmucks.
How much do you think it plays into the notion of if your parents are wealthy, he's thinking like donor?
Double tap. What you do is you get the free labor from the kid, And then the parents feel obligated to kick into the old coffers.
Guys,
it's a win-win-win. It's like the Just Coffee of
just
winning.
listen. All we need is one intern, and we could get one intern, and they would do the job, and they could be wealthy because that way we wouldn't have to pay them. Or we could get 5 wealthy interns and not only have them work for free, but make some money off of them.
So I thought that the proposal that some in the office had to pay the intern a minimum wage so that they could cobble together sandwiches and work here and potentially come from a wide range of backgrounds is very sweet. But instead, we're going to go.
Listen, here's the problem. If we pay them, then their parents aren't wealthy enough to donate.
So how much? I mean, it would be very nice for a little symbolic 25, but we want at least a couple thousand. We want the legal maximum in it. Now, guys, I can't keep debating this. I have things to do for Joe Manchin.
Plus, I've got to get over to Facebook. It's my shift on the call support.
My daughter's having a Facebook party, and speaking of which, we have to go over there and do some damage control from the whole George Soros thing. Cheryl, whatever you need.
After the news report came out yesterday, a spokesperson for Schumer came out and said, we'll be offering them a stipend. That was made an error.
Oh, sure.
We're going to be offering a stipend.
Like,
yes.
like a little no, there'll be a voucher for the metro system, which will be canceled out by the parents' campaign contribution.
That's right.
A free Facebook portal. The new product, you seen that?
It's very exciting.
That's a complete mistake.
Your
a complete
blood
with
type.
a total stipend.
Total.
That, of course, is going to go to the Bailey kid. Calling from a 725 area code. Who's this?
Hey, this is Jeff in Las Vegas.
Jeff in Las Vegas. What's on your mind?
Hey, we've had, it's been a great discussion of all these anti-democratic moves by Republicans, et cetera, but I just think that we've got to understand, they use the terms differently. Like when they talk about democracy or the ideas of it, Republicans use it as a term that's a way of settling decisions between white conservatives. Anybody else who is involved or elected outside white conservatives, that's what they mean by fraud. That's what they mean by voter fraud.
I think you're right. I mean, I don't. Look, there has been a long tradition in the conservative movement, and and I'm saying this broadly because I think this was different when we go all the way back to like post-Reconstruction. But if you go back and listen to the interview with Carol Anderson, at that time in the South, these conservative politicians, the percentage of people who would vote was extremely low, and they were perfectly happy with that. That's why you got things like poll taxes. That's why you got things like literacy tests. They wanted to exclude black people, but they were also happy to exclude a certain amount of poor whites as well. And Republicans are on record in saying that, we want low turnout because it helps us. And that is fundamentally an undemocratic perspective. And once you have that philosophy, taking steps that further your power and diminish those of the voters is perfectly consistent with what your ideological project is. So we shouldn't be surprised, but we certainly should be outraged, and we certainly need to get more attention on this because we're still, I think, in an era where for stuff this egregious, shame might have some implications. Appreciate the call, Jeff. Thanks. Let's go to 610 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 610. 610.
Hey, Sam. It's Mike.
Mike.
How are you?
Mike in Pennsylvania. How are you?
That's right.
Oh, all right.
Do I still have you?
Yeah.
I broke up.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
What's on your mind?
Oh, I just wanted to comment on that undemocratic moves that are happening in Wisconsin, North Carolina, and add Pennsylvania to the list. We have a couple interesting things that are happening here there was a state senator who was elected, and the Republicans are threatening not to seat her for no reason.
Why?
Just not to accept. Basically, they're saying that she didn't pass the residency requirement to get on the ballot.
But are aren't they're not in charge of that, are they? Wouldn't the court make that decision?
No. Yes, and there's a period of time for when you make those kind of challenges, and that's
you don't do it after someone's won the election.
Say again?
You don't do it after someone's won the election?
Yeah, that's kind of their argument, that they have reinterpreted that no, she was not legally on the ballot, so therefore we're not going to seat her. At least they're threatening that at this point. So that's another interesting thing. They're also, you mentioned the Pennsylvania Supreme Court earlier. They want to pass a law. Thankfully, we have Governor Wolf, so it's not going to happen. But they stated their goal was to gerrymander the Pennsylvania Supreme Court by creating 7 judicial districts and then forcing all the incumbent judges to go and have partisan elections again. Are you still with me?
Yeah. So wait. So they're attempting to do this for the future, or they were hoping to do this?
Yes. Yeah. They're hoping to do it in the future. That's their stated plan, because they added this. There was a gerrymandering reform bill that had really a lot of momentum in the last legislative session, and they added that as a poison pill that that they were going to force all 7 judges to face partisan elections with districts that they had drawn. So obviously they would gerrymander 4 Republican districts and then have Pittsburgh,
but Mike,
Philadelphia, and
all right. Well, let me ask you this: when are we going to see a lawsuit similar to the one that we saw with the congressional candidates? Like why? This is the thing I keep forgetting. This is what I keep forgetting about Pennsylvania. I keep thinking the maps that were redrawn to make the congressional districts fair were not the state representatives maps were not redrawn, and so you're still dealing with a situation where you can win 50+% of the vote and lose 60% of the or 55% of the races. So
yeah, it wasn't particularly close. I think the Democrats won by 7 or 8 points, and they're nowhere near the majority in either house.
So where's the lawsuit for this?
I don't know. I assume there's going to be one going, but it is what it is. Like,
so their idea is, of course, to get the judges out before that lawsuit gets there.
Well, right, and obviously, the next election is we won Governor Wolf, so and we have the Supreme Court. So at the very least, there's going to be nonpartisan maps in Pennsylvania for the next cycle, but they wouldn't go into place until 2022, which will be a midterm year for, hopefully if Trump loses, they have a strategy,
right,
of trying to maintain minority power for as long as they can, and they've done the math, and they know that they just don't have a path to victory through a democratic process. So they have power now. So what are they going to do? They're going to, instead of persuade the electorate, try to shape it,
right,
through any means necessary. And then so it's stuff like this rigging in North Carolina. It's blatant. This is like old school electoral fraud. Absentee ballot fraud is like the oldest trick in the book, and so there's actually reports that he might have done that same because he defeated, I think, an incumbent Republican congressman. And what's interesting about it is they're actually fundraising on it right now, the North Carolina GOP, that the liberals are trying to steal the election.
Of course.
So, it's not like they're seeing this and then going, whoa, this is a bridge too far, stealing elections. We just can't countenance that. No, they are actively, participating in it. That's why, it's really, it's Donald Trump in the White House, and a GOP that seemingly is just barreling headlong into full-blown anti-democratic tactics. It's scary. And, I know in my election, we lost by 1%, and it's sort of a Hillary Clinton scenario where you can blame 10 factors. But one of those factors was, without a doubt, the gerrymandering.
Right.
If we had switched out basically any precinct for a non-gerrymandered precinct, we would have won. So it's really that simple. Is gerrymandering in Pennsylvania is controlling the state legislature for the Republicans. And, and it's the same in North Carolina, Wisconsin, Michigan. Notice that this is every single purple state.
Yes.
Is gerrymandered heavily at the state legislative level. And, you look at the congressional performance in Wisconsin or in Ohio, they didn't, the Democrats didn't do that well, even though we had a big wave.
Yep.
Pennsylvania, we got 9-9. It wasn't super, but it was kind of fair, I guess. The geographic concentration kind of proved the edge they needed to maintain 50-50, even though they lost big time. And, our whole system is creaks, and the cracks
Yep.
are showing. And the Senate and the House, the presidency, the Supreme Court, the constitutional order, is not long for this world unless we really have some severe democratic reforms and have them fast.
Yeah, I'm not sure how those are going to happen, but appreciate the call, Mike.
I don't know either.
Thanks.
Have
for
a
the call.
good one.
Thanks. We're having some problem with our Skype. It's very strange.
A lot of people
never
are having trouble with Skype.
Never
I think it's a system-wide problem.
heard of that, where you're actually getting other calls interfering. So yesterday we spoke about the riots in France, and a little sloppy in talking about them. On their face, a function of, or at least in some respects, being reported as a. Is that the first one? Not the first tweet in that series of tweets.
Yes, it is.
Oh, are you sure? Because I see that line goes up, no?
This was the first one we pulled.
Oh. How many were there? There was a bunch. So in France, there was obviously some riots and whatnot. And let me pull this up here. All right, let's go take a phone call. I'll look for it. Calling from 678 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Is this me?
Yeah.
Wow, first time caller. Made it through.
Who is this?
This is Nathan from Georgia.
Nathan from Georgia. What's on your mind, Nathan?
Oh, I just went to the polls today, and it was kind of surreal because I was the only person there.
Oy. That's not a good sign.
Yeah.
Unless you live in a very Republican area.
Unfortunately, I couldn't get 500 people to come with me, but I was able to get my mother to go.
Okay.
Yeah. That's basically it.
Do you live in a? Tell me about the area you live in. Is it a predominantly Republican area, or is that somewhat?
Yeah.
Is that somewhat?
Yeah, I'm.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm in Georgia's 6th district. It's Marietta, very suburban. A lot of white soccer moms.
So that's good.
A lot of. Yeah, somewhat.
Did your district? Who did your district vote for last time?
Last time we had Karen Handel, and for president, it was definitely.
It was who? Trump. It was Trump.
For Trump.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Hopefully nobody in your district came out to vote except for you and your mom.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right. Well, here's what I would say, Nathan. Do you know anybody else who lives in Georgia?
Well, sure, but I
Get
don't
him.
know. What are you getting at?
Get him to vote. Get him to vote.
Get them to vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Call up and
I've-
tell them it's the most
I've
important thing
shared-
they can do.
Indeed, indeed. Well, thank you, Sam. Sam fucking Seder. Woo!
All right. Well, thank you, Nathan. I appreciate the call, man.
All right.
Thanks for the report.
You guys have a good one.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks. All right. Yeah. So, this was size. Okay. So getting back to this, we were talking about keep that up for a moment. We were talking about the protests, violent protests that took place in France. I think are ongoing, actually. In France, they really know how to protest. They burn things, and they march, and they respond. And so tough stuff. Here is the best, I would say, 4 or 5 tweet assessment of what's going on in France that I've seen. And I was struck by it because, I don't know, I guess I've been sleeping on this, but it was presented by Pamela Anderson.
You mean Comrade Pam? You haven't been on this?
I have not been on this. She first posts and she must speak French. She's Canadian, and I don't know if she's from Quebec or not, but she appears to speak French. And she posts a piece from Le Monde, France, talking about it's a moment of crisis for the yellow vests. That's what they identify. A lot of these protesters wear yellow vests, like the reflective vests. And so she posts that, and then she follows it up with the following tweet: "I despise violence. But what is the violence of all these people in burned, luxurious cars compared to the structural violence of the French and global elites?" She asks. Instead of being hypnotized by the burning images, we have to pose the question, where did it come from? And the answer is, it came from rising tensions between the metropolitan elite and rural poor, between the politics represented by Macron and the 99% who are fed up with inequality, not only in France, all over the world. The true question is whether the disobedience can be constructive. What comes the day after, can the progressives in France and all over the world use this energy? So instead of violence, we have images of constructing equal, egalitarian societies.
So she has basically better political analysis than the entirety of essentially the global center-left establishment that's attempting to answer this.
Yeah, I would say
she just nailed it.
Her being able to put it that concisely, I would put myself in that same group of people that she has better analysis than.
I would as well.
I mean, that was extremely astute and concise.
Excellent.
You know, Axl Rose was doing stuff like this a couple weeks ago. Very woke tweets, very politically woke tweets.
Are they dating? I don't know what they're. Why do you say Axl Rose? Just another
like older celebrity.
What do you mean older? What do you mean? What?
Like 90s.
Oh,
like your
right.
age.
All right, there we go.
90s relic.
So good for Pamela Anderson. I'm following her now.
That was excellent.
It's pretty impressive.
Very 2018 that amidst all of these things, someone like Pamela Anderson comes through with the clutch commentary.
Meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, apparently Eric Trump is rather upset by George Conway. Who is George Conway? Well, he is Kellyanne Conway's husband. And he has, since very early in the Trump administration, been public about the problems he has with the Donald Trump administration. It's a little bit strange. It's a little bit strange. George Conway basically said on Twitter that President Trump has committed witness tampering and obstruction of justice. That was a function of Donald Trump basically saying, hang in there to Manafort.
Roger Stone knows what time it is.
Right, and Roger Stone, you're my guy. Wink, wink.
Just relax.
And so Conway said, this is witness tampering. And Eric Trump, really family man that he is, came out on Twitter and said, of all the ugliness in politics, the utter disrespect George Conway shows toward his wife, her career, place of work. Incidentally, Eric Trump is the son of Donald Trump. In case you couldn't contextualize this. And everything she has fought so hard to achieve might top them all. Kellyanne Conway is a great person, and frankly, his actions are horrible. Now, of course, George Conway did not respond to this because Eric Trump subtweeted him by not putting his handle. However, Reza Aslan tweeted the following. Wait, did I miss something? Did George Conway pay money to have sex with a porn star right after his wife gave birth? And that was retweeted by George Conway.
Always nice to be able to let other people's tweets do your fighting for you.
Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, indeed. Obviously, George Conway's retweet not to be taken literally.
That one might be an endorsement.
Seriously. Yeah, exactly. Some retweets are, in fact, endorsements. All right.
Retweeted it. I meant it.
Good time for one more call. I'm sorry, folks. I know we got people who have been hanging on the line for calling from a 415 area code. 415.
Hello.
Hello. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello.
Hello. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Is this me?
Yes, it is. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Sargon of Akkad calling from the progressive dystopia of San Francisco.
Sargon of Akkad calling from San Francisco. What is on your mind, Mr. Codpiece?
I wanted to I wanted to talk about immigration and just kind of the lack of context that's given when it's addressed, especially Latin Americans coming to the States.
Okay.
You've had Gerald Horn on before, and I think he touched upon this once. He kind of alluded to this really quickly. He talked about the history of Texas and how Texas, when it was under the control of Mexico, was inviting people in from the states to settle Texas with the conditions of that they convert to Catholicism, they stop practicing slavery, and they learn Spanish. And people took up that offer, but they came in and they didn't live up to those promises to the point that it was the majority. It became the majority English-speaking, slavery-practicing white people. And I find it really ironic that people complain about Latin Americans moving into the U.S., not learning the language, staying in like these insulated little sub-colonies. I just find it very disturbing and very infuriating to see people complain about people coming when they're historically illiterate about these kinds of trends across history, especially as somebody who's part Native American, to be asked, like, where are you from immediately, when our people have been here for 14,000 years and to be treated as like somebody who doesn't look like the expected person. So I just wanted to bring that up in light of what's happening to immigrants that are being treated as these invading hordes when most of them are Native American or part Native American, and they're being treated as subhumans when their ancestors crossed these lands for 14,000 years.
I mean, the lack of historical literacy about that, I don't think is an accident, right? I mean, I don't know that anybody sat down and said we're going to, but this is the way that societies create their own sort of like fictional narrative to justify their actions that, particularly at their, their foundings and maybe sometimes, even more recent past, right? I mean, stuff gets written out all the time, and it is stunning. But I'm not diminishing at all what you're saying. I'm saying it is to a certain extent, this is by design, right? Everybody likes to sort of sanitize their backstory because it makes them feel better, and for some that for a certain percentage of our population, a significant percentage, even contemplating what you're talking about is offensive. Even being faced with the truth is an assault, right? And the way that they strike back is basically, and what allows them to is that sort of that dehumanization of other people. But I appreciate you calling in and reminding people about it. And also I appreciate your handle. Sargon of Codpiece.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, I just wanted to make just one quick point, not as a Sam Harris type thought experiment, but I think that people sometimes justify these things as in the victors, the more powerful, the more advanced, took over these lands. And I'd like to offer people a thought experiment of thinking about them having people come to their house that have superior firepower and bullying them out of their own house and saying, well, you should stop whining about it because somebody stronger than you took over it. That's just a thought experiment that completely
right. We in the society,
the hypocrisy.
We in the society do not hold up carjackers, let's say, as being, morally superior because of their ability to get us to displace us from our cars.
Well, actually, there's probably a good reason if someone hijacked your car, but this is higher on dominance hierarchy.
But you can see the echoes of this with the poor shaming that the Republicans do, right? I mean, even Paul Ryan's apocryphal story about, the brown bagging thing. There is a narrative in this country that if you're wealthy, you're morally righteous. If you're poor or living in poverty, you're morally depraved. All of that is part of a whole. If we were able to conquer you, it was because we are morally righteous. I mean, on some level, that is the libertarian ethos, right? I mean, we get to that with Walter Block. How do we establish property rights? Well, basically, they are frozen from the time that we came over and took the property. And that is because we were morally superior and we were able to take it. And then we basically said, and now we're going to have rules about that. So I appreciate the call.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Check the link I just sent.
Thank you.
Speaking of which.
All right, folks.
Real quick.
Oh, we got Milo. What do we got?
Well, just look at the T-shirt that Milo is wearing. It underscores your point, and it's also very funny in light of recent events.
Yes. Oh, did you send that to everybody?
This is the Broke Ho picture?
No.
No,
different shirt.
Everybody's on this one.
This is a heartwarming story for me. This is a heartwarming story for me to tell you folks. It's being reported now that far-right wing activist Milo Yiannopoulos was more than $2 million in debt during the 2018 year. This is according to a collection of documents assembled by his former Australian tour promoters, seen by The Guardian Australia. Creditors listed in the document include employees of his company, a wedding venue. Apparently he spent like 50 grand on his wedding.
My husband's black.
And his former sponsors, the billionaire Mercer family. It always sucks when you're right-wing
so petty that they want their money back. See why you should hate oligarchs?
He owed
That's just petty to ask for their money back.
Yeah, that's a lesson for anybody thinking they want to be the next Milo.
Yeah,
he owed $1.6 million to his own company. So in other words, he was trying to get that money out without paying taxes on it, right? And supposedly, I guess he's going to pay it back. I don't know. $400,000 to the Mercers. So if he owes $1.6 million to his own company, what that suggests to me is that he has a tax liability somewhere in the neighborhood of like $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 maybe. Maybe, you know. He owes $400,000 to the Mercers, $153,000 to his former lawyers, $76,000 to former collaborator and Breitbart writer Alum Bukhari, and $20,000 to the luxury jeweler brand Cartier. And of course, he owed several $1,000s to far right writers, including Pam Geller, Theodore Beale, or Vox Day. And according to Yiannopoulos, he owes even more than that. So sad, ladies and gentlemen. So sad. He has been attempting to organize speaking tours in 2018 in Australia. Nobody's interested. Sorry. So sorry. Gab McGinnis was there the other day, Florida.
Not quite there.
Not quite there. He made it, I think, to the outskirts of the airport, and then they.
Did he actually get to Australia?
I don't know.
That would have been very funny if
he was refused a visa to enter. So there you go. Yiannopoulos apparently also recently quit the Proud Boys. Imagine that. Milo Yiannopoulos quits the Proud Boys right on the same time as Gavin McGinnis, and sadly, no one even knew it. And then we have this T-shirt he's wearing, "Stop Being Poor." Well, I would say to you, young man, turn around is fair play.
He recently posted on Instagram the Instagram post where he had claimed that he is actually more in debt than the stories say. He had a T-shirt that said "broke hoe," and it was a picture of a hoe, the garden implement. So he likes to express himself
clever.
through T-shirts.
Very, very clever. Well, what do you think? Like, let's do office pool. All right, before we go and wrap this up, I'll read a couple IMs. Office pool here. Let's say within like 6 to 24 months. Okay, Michael, let's start with you. What is Milo Yiannopoulos doing? How is he making money?
That is a really interesting question. I won't say this, but I could envision some very disturbing criminal activity.
Okay. This is all a guess. There's a pool. What? $25 each at the end of the 24 months?
Sure. Yeah, $10.
$25. Matt, you got
Mitt Romney over here.
Put aside
$25.
Put aside
$25.
Put aside 85 cents a month until then.
How do we determine that who won if we're all wrong?
Oh, Jesus.
What do you draw?
Let's just call it $5 and let's just do it in 6 weeks. What?
Closest to the hole sort of thing?
Yeah, like the first story that comes out about Yiannopoulos 6 months from now that mentions a new gig. Okay? So it's $5 each. Can you handle it?
There might not even be any stories that come out.
Well, there may not. There may not, and then nobody has to put in.
Into pure
okay,
obscurity.
but you're saying real crime.
Sure.
Matt.
do that. Why not?
I mean, I would have said probably some sort of drug-related activity because I imagine he's going to try to be sedating himself and then he's going to be sitting on supply.
Right.
So.
Okay,
Well,
that's distinct.
Well, no,
You're-
it's. I mean, okay, I just didn't want to spell it out, but yes, that's of course.
Well, you're
what
saying
other,
a
what
criminal
criminal
activity.
activity you think I'm talking about?
stealing watches. Like he could.
Okay,
shoplift.
Matt and I are
shoplift.
both down for
shoplift.
drugs. If you want me to change it to,
Well,
no, I'm not going to change
You got to be more specific. He takes drugs. He's got to be an OD.
No, there's going to be a selling, or I thought you said money related.
Okay, so you're saying selling. Okay,
Yeah, I would
selling
say
drugs.
some type of selling.
What I got from Matt was like an OD or something like that.
Okay. All right.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, that's actually a good one.
I think he's heading to Brazil.
Brazil?
Yeah.
For the new fascist junta there?
Oh,
What's he doing
that's
for
a
them?
good idea. I think that's enough just to be working in Brazil. I think.
You know, his probably most marketable.
Whoa. Whoa. You ready? I say, after he comes out of rehab, that he may or may not have needed, he's going to be like a self-help, self-care guy.
I think it's more likely. What I was going to say is I'll change my answer to make it more distinct from Michael's. If he's still with his black husband, I think they get into some sort of online pornography. I think that would probably be his more
Camming?
marketable. Yeah,
I don't think he
becomes a cam boy.
I don't think he can
Alright,
do. I don't
this
think
is
he
good.
can do self-help stuff. But I
All
can
right,
see
somebody better write this
I
up.
probably
Not
can't go to
racist.
Brazil either because Bolsonaro hates gay people.
Yeah, they don't do the
sorry.
they don't do the ironic gay thing there. Yeah, they're pretty behind.
Or he could be the
Forgot
only
about that.
one, like a court jester in a way. Like, I have my one ironic gay guy.
Imagine being a gay fascist and thinking we just need to update the society just enough to where I can be cool here.
Yeah. Colin from
Dave
Nebraska. All right, I'm going to do 10 of these. Colin from Nebraska. I know you white devils don't want to talk 2020 yet, but Michael Tracy at Spectator had a great article about Bernie being a sleeper yet again, except with an infrastructure not there in 2016, Bernie or bust. He's a sleeper? What does that mean?
Like, I don't know. I mean, he's definitely
He's
a front runner.
like more or less like the front runner.
He's definitely a front runner, so I don't see how that works.
Very Michael Tracy article.
But I'm all in.
And
Bernie runs.
He has more of an infrastructure not there in 2016. What a reporter.
That's stunning. Who would have thought that a
PJ
guy...
from Montreal. On last week's podcast, Jimmy Dore called you out, claiming that MSNBC wannabe would be outraged that Bernie was joined by Mike Lee to have a debate on Yemen. The best part is he cut it out from his YouTube video. He's equating bipartisanship to end wars to joining forces with Cernovich, isn't he? What a douche. Left his best.
Yeah, he totally gets it.
You know
He
what's so
cut it
funny?
out from his YouTube.
We literally explained at the time we were explaining how stupid this was. The actual analogy example I used was, oh, of course, Bernie Sanders collaborating with Mike Lee on Yemen is great and entirely different than retweeting fascists.
Bit of a difference between Mike Cernovich and Lee.
What a dumb. What a dumb.
With not
Also, I would be very curious to how many drone stories he's done since Trump has been in office.
Now, look, don't
I'd be
get me
curious.
wrong. What's happened with
Somebody
the
can
drones
send
is
me a
wrong.
link. Somebody can send me to a link of the drone stories he's done that showed how much more aggressive Trump was with his drone policy.
There's things to cover, like Rachel Maddow using a bad facial expression when she talks about Putin. There's real things that you don't have the courage to cover at.
And guess what? We're not going to cut this out. Matt's mom. Abby Huntsman and Meghan McCain remind me of Jennifer Garner and Kelly Clarkson, respectively, only with minor birth defects and no talent. Fran from Philadelphia. Was anyone else floored when they heard about this North Carolina absentee ballot harvesting crime, specifically because of Paul Ryan clip where he conspiracy baits about this very thing happening in California? Yeah, it's super crazy. Nick from Manitoba. Remember that time Mr. Seder said black Africans on MSNBC?
I do.
I do. It keeps me up at night. Honestly, skull and bones. Meghan McCain's self-entitled tantrum on The View. So it's wrong to bring up Trump or current politics right after George H.W. Bush's death. Anyone remember what percentage of her eulogy her father was an open rebuke to Trump? 10, 25, 50%? Also, just notice that Ari Berman looks like Sacha Baron Cohen Mossad character. J.J. Cool. Wouldn't it be better to start calling more men like Tucker Carlson or Trump entitled bitches as a way of reducing the sexism involved with the world? Yes.
Yes.
After all, McCain, Tucker, and Trump have worked hard to earn the right to be called entitled bitches. Grand old pirate. I didn't realize Baloo from the Jungle Book became a political author. Ryan from Ohio. Somebody brought a gun to my university yesterday, and the whole campus was on lockdown. Luckily, nobody got hurt. Indeed, Tam Folger. Did any of you watch Say Her Name, the documentary about the short life and awful death of Sandra Bland? It was gut-wrenching.
No.
Oy. Jesus Christ. Bingo Mosquito. It's time to start calling the Democratic Party the Democracy Party over and over again on TV a la Frank Luntz. Also, how about Democratic elected officials in Wisconsin merely defy and disobey these ridiculous Republican attempts, force them to either take it to court or risk the optics of sending in armed riot police to arrest Democrats? I think they should go on the lam. I really do. Mitch from Houston, absentee ballot collectors are good friends with the wallet inspector. The cuckest footnote on the history of Michigan Republicans ignoring referendum votes includes the wolf hunting law and the emergency financial manager law that helped cause the wider crisis. Indeed, both were rejected in referendum. Both are law currently. Yes, good point. Matthias, the North Carolina story is getting more insane. The GOP is trying to get a law passed so the GOP candidates chair the boards of elections every election year. Boink, boink, boink. I listened to Dave Rubin interview with Tucker Carlson. Tucker made a comment about having nearly 3 million federal employees was a waste. Dave misheard the number and responded with 3 billion? That can't...
Well, definitely going to need to find this.
That can't be right.
That would be a bit too big government for me. Even.
And fall with a super insecure right. He wasn't making a joke. What a sad, stupid little man.
Oh, that's beautiful. If somebody knows a time code for that, just tweet it at me.
Yeah, and how also, if someone knows how to frame a video and hang it on your wall and have it just repeat over and over again. Wait a second. 3 billion federal employees? This is absurd, folks.
Yeah, How
do we let this happen?
Yeah, I'm a socialist. I would totally concede that one. I think 3 billion federal employees.
That's a good target.
Super, yeah, right. Maybe a little excessive.
The worst part, really the most disturbing part about it is how many of them are Chinese nationals.
There actually is an Amazon.
Sam's Tinder profile. Hey, girl, swipe right. Would you vote for me in the Senate 2022? Come on, we can do better. Mo, am I wrong? Didn't Obama and Holder start an organization to combat gerrymandering in the last year? Is it still active after the midterms? I think it was more voter suppression than gerrymandering. Train boy, I was the one who voted for you and Cynthia Nixon. You were my write-in governor vote, and Cynthia Nixon was my vote for lieutenant governor, since governor and lieutenant were on the same ticket. That's how I figured it would have been counted. Sweet. Thank you. Share the rod. Thoughts on Soros-affiliated university being shut down in Hungary? How prevalent are Dr. G's Nazi pals there currently? Pretty prevalent. John Spiegler Cuck. I wrote in for Sam with a ballot. I just forgot which office, so I may have written him in for governor. Also, I wrote the whole MR crew on other positions. Left his best.
I saw a ballot for judgeships that was myself, Jamie, and the Cumtown team.
I bet it was this guy.
Maybe it was this guy.
James from Indiana. UK House of Commons holds May government in contempt of Parliament. First time ever. And Bonara, is it the same 10 known terrorists trying to cross the U.S.-Mexican border each day? They sound like really badly trained guys. They just keep showing up with like different
like Groucho glasses, Groucho eyebrows.
Maestros of disguise.
It's not me. I was a man.
A terrorist? No, I'm here to. I'm trying to be a maitre d' in Miami.
Yes.
Hezbollah. I never heard of them. What a horrible group.
They show up in like full soccer uniforms. Like, yeah, we're a team.
We're a soccer club from the Italy Federation.
Yeah.
Al Qaeda. What?
I play center back on the team. Because I like to kick things.
I'm a linebacker for the Milan Stars.
Militant apathy. I effing despise Scalise. That piece of shit has life saved by 2 black law enforcement officers who literally took bullets for his evil ass. When he couldn't feed himself or wipe his own ass, I guarantee you people of color fed and bathed him. What a wretched, soulless scumbag. Brian Cowardox, could you please remind your listeners of British Columbia to vote yes for pro-rep in the electoral reform referendum in that province? I don't know what they should do, but vote and go out and learn more about it. Vispa, bizarre effect of how HW passing has been my dad realizing that Trump is a major dick. Finally heard him admit that his attitude and many of his actions are out of line. He said seeing how people speaking about HW carry themselves far more professionally made him realize it. I'll take progress wherever I can get it. Left is best. Congressional baseball fan, dear Mr. Scalise, I'd like to take this moment to remind you that just like baseball, terrorism is also America's pastime. Play ball. And the final I am of the day, Jermo! Sammy, I know you could easily win the governorship in New York 2022. First, don't do sarcastic joke with Ari Berman. I'm ready to volunteer. Just think you and Alexandria running the show. All right, folks, see you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bulb, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks.